Chapter 2873. Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The shockwaves from the Taigu Emperor's self-destruction spread into the ancient immortal world. Dust flew everywhere and the ancient heavenly emperor's body was injured once again. He was almost swept into the abyss. Fortunately, the Taigu Emperor's self-destruction did not happen nearby. Instead, he rushed into the depths of the Milky Way. Bang bang bang. Dozens of corpses fell to the ground, and the experts from Crazed Manor who had rushed in from behind became meat cushions. Their internal organs were almost crushed, and blood flowed everywhere. However, this also helped those who were seriously injured retain their last shred of hope. At this moment, the battle was still ongoing between Yi Qinghan and Chu Ju. The two of them were evenly matched. Both of them unleashed their peak battle strength. Yi Qinghan attacked with all his might, forcing Chu Ju further and further away. At this moment, Yi Qinghan did not ask for much. He only wanted to protect the ancient heavenly emperor's life and the lives of the older generation of the Crazed Manor. As long as he could force Chu Ju back, there was no need to care about his face. Hall Master, your strength is only a so-so. I'm afraid a heavenly herb is not easy to enjoy. Yi Qinghan punched out once again, forcing Chu Ju back a few steps. The two of them stood 10 meters apart. Chu Ju stared at Yi Qinghan sinisterly and said coldly, "Yes, it's not easy. However, it's still better than you. You're still not an emperor. Do you want to surpass the Flame Emperor?" Yi Qinghan said confidently, "I don't dare to surpass the world's #1 emperor. However, when I become an emperor, I will at least be able to withstand the support of your elite hall." Chu Ju looked at Yi Qinghan coldly and said coldly, "Yi Qinghan, you will definitely regret your actions today." Yi Qinghan replied indifferently, "We'll talk about it later. Since I've done it, I won't regret it now. If I don't do it, I will regret it for the rest of my life." Chu Ju's cold gaze swept across the rear. Many of the Crazed Manor's experts were severely injured. It was a pity that they could not fly above the chasm in the middle. After the army made a detour, the Crazed Manor should have more or less recovered. They had missed this great opportunity. Chu Ju had no choice but to hide the murderous intent in his eyes as he could not kill the Crazed Manor's top experts or the ancient heavenly emperor. It's a small world. Yi Qinghan, we will meet again within 1,000 years. Chu Ju retreated as he reminded Yi Qinghan coldly. Yi Qinghan stared at Chu Ju confidently and replied, "Yes, we will meet again. But the next time we meet, I will take off your mask. I'll wait and see." Chu Ju retreated, but before he left, he still glared at the ancient heavenly emperor from the corner of his eye. It was as if he wanted to kill the ancient heavenly emperor. Yi Qinghan could not imagine the hatred between the new hall master and the ancient heavenly emperor. He realized that the new hall master seemed more interested in killing the ancient heavenly emperor than defeating him. Interesting. The waters of this elite hall are much deeper than I expected. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. Back then, the Taigu Emperor's battle was against the Yen Emperor. In this life, it's against me. The Yen Emperor's death is probably not as simple as I thought. It's also not as simple as the people of the world said. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath as he pondered. The Yen Emperor had passed the Yen Emperor's Tao to the ancient heavenly emperor but not to the Yen ancestor. If he could figure out the mysteries behind it, it would be even more interesting. Hua hua hua. Da. Yi Qinghan quickly retreated. Although he was injured in the battle with Chu Ju, it was not to the extent that he couldn't even bring some injured people with him. Hua. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and used the universe up his sleeve to suck everyone into a huge space. Hua. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure dodged as he ran. Blood splattered all the way. Several of his leg and hand bones were broken, and a few of his ribs were also broken. However, his vitality was not inferior to the Taigu Emperor's, so these injuries were not fatal to him. Yi Qinghan brought everyone back to the depths of the Yunling Basin. He arranged for all the injured people of the insane manor to gather together and diluted 2 drops of the vine liquid. After all, the amount was too little. Although most of their injuries were superficial, they were not fatal. There was no need to waste the vine liquid that could save their lives. Everyone took some of the vine liquid and saved their lives. The rest was a long process of recovery. Because Shirgu had taken the vine liquid alone, he was already on the verge of death. But now, he could even get out of bed and walk. It had to be said that the might of the vine liquid was the accumulation of the mother vine for countless years. Its vitality was even more terrifying than the Taigu emperor's. Yi Qinghan looked at the people of the insane manor who were slowly recovering. Apart from Sheng Yan's 3 brothers and Tang Chu's death, only 4 of the true experts had died. He let out a sigh of relief. It was just that the ancient massacre god and conquering heaven camp had sacrificed a lot. The 2 armies had lost a lot of people in the early stages of the battle. In addition, there were at least 200,000 people who fell into the abyss. In total, 400,000 to 500,000 people had died. This was a huge number. Although more of heaven's experts had died, the enemy's numbers were simply too great. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and thought about the current situation. Apart from the Hall Master, there were no other experts in Class 1 Hall. The ancient emperor had been killed by the ancient celestial emperor. The primordial overgod of space had been severely injured by the ancient celestial emperor's sneak attack and was killed by the ancient celestial emperor. The Taigu emperor had self-destructed, and the last Taigu emperor had also self-destructed. There should be no more experts hiding in Class 1 Hall. Once insane manor is fully recovered, it's time to completely devour them, Yi Qinghan muttered. In the depths of the universe, after the Flame Emperor's path had erupted, immemorial Yin Yang Emperor had been staring at the sky. At that moment, the Flame Emperor's path had suppressed the heavenly Tao and was at the peak. How could he not pay attention to it? Chu Shiyang frowned and said with a hoarse voice, "The Flame Emperor actually has an inheritor." Immemorial Yin Yang Emperor's handsome face was filled with disdain as he said indifferently, "As long as the Flame Emperor doesn't revive, there is nothing to be afraid of. However, this person can't be left alive for long. Go back and kill him. Personally guard Class 1 Hall and cut off part of the Tribulation Taker's wings, but don't force him too much. Otherwise, he will go crazy and lose control. As for the alien star, it won't be able to escape for 10,000 years." Chu Shiyang took a deep breath and cupped his fists. "Brother Yin Yang is considerate. I will go back now." Hua! Chu Shiyang's figure flashed and disappeared. His speed was extremely fast. His strength was obviously not as strong as immemorial Yin Yang Emperor and Ancestor Yan, but he was stronger than the ancient Celestial Emperor. 10,000 years, the alien star is finished. Chu Shiyang's eyes flashed with worry. The destruction of the alien star meant that both situations were over. With the current situation, it was not a good thing for both situations to end. Swoosh! 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 Chu Shiyang was as fast as lightning. His eyes flashed as he reached out and put on his mask. His entire person became deep and mysterious, making it impossible for others to see through him. Yi Qinghan did not know that Chu Shiyang had returned. He did not even know that Chu Shiyang was still alive. With such an ancient master returning, it would be even more difficult to deal with. At this moment, the ancient celestial emperor had also consumed half a drop of vine liquid. His recovery speed was extremely fast. This attack had killed 2 Taigu emperors consecutively, and one of them was the eternal celestial emperor hidden by Class 1 Hall. This made Yi Qinghan completely trust the ancient celestial emperor. Even Gu Jiutian understood the ancient celestial emperor's painstaking efforts. For the final victory, sacrificing some people was worth it. Perhaps Gu Jiutian's mother was truly fearless and chose to sacrifice herself. Hua! Yi Qinghan looked at the surging galaxy in the void. Everything in the mountains and rivers shook as if there was a phenomenon. At this moment, Fan Yin walked over and whispered in his ear, "A calamity is approaching Quang Manor, but it is unknown whether it is good or bad for you." Chapter 2874. Fan Yin's divination wasn't as accurate as Emperor Liang's. She could only roughly predict the calamity, but this time, it was very vague, so vague that she wasn't sure if she had made a mistake. However, the divination was the same every time, so she had to inform Yi Qinghan in advance. Yi Qinghan frowned as he looked at the surrounding flowers and grass shrinking. There were obvious vibrations in the air. Withdraw the army. No one from Insane Manor is allowed to go out. Yi Qinghan circulated his immortal qi and let out a low roar. His roar was like a sudden clap of thunder as it rumbled forward. "Senior sister, pay attention to the divination. I also have a strange feeling. Logically speaking, the other party's experts are all dead, so we shouldn't be in danger." Yi Qinghan frowned as he muttered to himself. Suddenly, he recalled something Chu Jun had once said. There are two people chasing after the alien star. One of them is the immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor, and the other, could it be that the other person has returned? Yi Qinghan suddenly became nervous. Someone who could stand on the same level as the Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor, even if they couldn't rule the world, was still stronger than the ancient Heavenly Emperor. If I join forces with the ancient Heavenly Emperor, we might be able to hold them off. Jiutian and the experts from Insane Manor might be able to stop the new Hall Master, but the losses will be great. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. It would be difficult to defeat the other party. Inform Insane Manor that everyone doesn't need to conserve resources. Use everything. We must recover within a month, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Fan Yin nodded and quickly returned to inform Emperor Yi. The news was quickly passed on, and Insane Manor fell into a tense atmosphere. Yi Qinghan ordered Yan Ao to guard the node and began to plan for the final step. No matter what, they had to leave a way out. 1 month later, Chu Shiliang returned wearing a mask. Even if the Yan Emperor were to return, he might not be able to recognize Chu Shiliang. Chu Shiliang returned to Class 1 Hall's headquarters. Right now, Class 1 Hall only had Chu Ju guarding it. There were no other experts. Class 1 Hall's Taigu Emperor had been killed, and the 6 Taigu Emperors had been taken out by Quang Manor. However, Quang Manor had not lost many people. "Master, you're back. What instructions do you have this time?" Chu Ju immediately asked respectfully. Chu Shiliang asked in a deep voice, who struck out the Yan Emperor Dao. "Master, it's the ancient Heavenly Emperor. He has the bloodline of the Yan clan and has received the inheritance of the Yan Emperor," Chu Ju replied immediately. Chu Shiliang seemed to have predicted the outcome. At this moment, his back was facing the hall as he stared at the sky. After a long time, he said in a deep voice, "This person will ruin our plans in the future. We can't leave him alive. The reason I've returned this time is to take his life. They must die. As for the rest of Insane Manor, don't make a move for now. We don't want to anger Yi Qinghan." Chu Ju took a deep breath and asked with a frown, "Master, why don't you take the risk to kill Yi Qinghan?" Chu Shiliang sighed and said helplessly, "I don't dare to take the risk." The possibility of him breaking through the 10 tribulations and 10 lifetimes was 50-50. No one knew if he could completely transcend the 5 elements. The immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor did not dare to take the risk, and neither did Chu Shiliang. "Master, the plan after this?" Chu Ju bowed and asked. Chu Shiliang's aura dissipated as if it didn't exist. He looked in the direction of the Yunling Basin. After a long time, he said indifferently, "There's no hurry. There's still 10,000 years left. It's enough for me to get rid of all the uncertainties. Also, have you found the backup that Brother Yin Yang arranged? Chu Ju shook his head and replied helplessly, there are only so many experts in insane manner. Many of them have followed Yi Qing Han since young. It's hard to be sure, especially the people arranged by the immortal emperor. Usually, the more likely they are, the more unlikely they are. The more unlikely they are, the more likely they are. That's why I haven't been able to find out who they are. They haven't exposed themselves either. The hall fell into silence again. Chu Shiliang could predict, but there were many things that couldn't be predicted. In addition, the immemorial Yin Yang immortal emperor blocked some people's heavenly secrets. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find any clues. Wait here first. I'll go take a look at the ancient heavenly emperor. Whoosh! Chu Shiliang flew away and disappeared without a trace. This kind of person was second only to the Yen ancestor and the immemorial Yin Yang immortal emperor. If he didn't want to be exposed, it would be hard for anyone to discover him. Whoosh whoosh! Whoosh! Chu Shiliang silently appeared above the huge crack. The chaotic laws here could prevent anyone below the Taigu Emperor from flying. However, it didn't affect him at all. Looking at the crack, Chu Shiliang could guess the ancient heavenly emperor's strongest battle strength. Hiss hiss hiss, Chu Shiliang took in a deep breath of cold air and muttered to himself, Yen Emperor, I'm really sorry. I have no other choice. Who asked him to want to kill you as well? You should understand this point. Chu Shiliang felt that the Flame Emperor's death was a pity. This kind of demonic talent had already transcended the boundaries. It was a pity that he died, but it was even more terrifying that he was alive. Back then, there must have been more than one person who wanted the Flame Emperor dead. In the immemorial era, there were two extremes. Half of the people were crazy for the Flame Emperor, and the other half wanted him dead. Chu Jun has taken on the crime of killing you and tarnished your reputation. With your strength, how could you possibly die at his hands? Chu Shiliang smiled silently and did not say anything else. Instead, he quietly walked towards the Cloud Ridge Basin. He walked on a small mountain path, but no one could discover him. Even if they were face to face, they would feel that his figure was blurry, not to mention using their divine sense to discover him. Half a day later, Chu Shiliang appeared in the territory of the crazed manor. No matter how many soldiers there were, they couldn't discover him. Even the vines on the ground didn't reveal his figure. His strength was far beyond Chu Ju and the Crown Prince, and also far beyond Yi Qing Han. If the ancient heavenly emperor met him alone, he would only die. In the immemorial era, other than the people who ruled the world, there were only two people who could control the world. The Yen ancestor and Chu Shiliang. At this moment, Chu Shiliang was overlooking the entire situation, but no one discovered him. Even though Yi Qing Han was awake and was patrolling back and forth, he still couldn't find Chu Shiliang's location. The ancient heavenly emperor was in the military camp at the moment. Moreover, he was in the first camp of the heaven-conquering camp. The army guarded the four directions and formed a boundary. There were even many experts with crossbows standing on the roofs. Anyone who dared to approach without Yi Qing Han's token would be attacked by lightning. The ancient heavenly emperor was recuperating. His injuries were the most serious. He had used the 7th level of the Yen Emperor Way in advance, injuring his foundation. After consuming the vine liquid, he still couldn't fully recover after such a long time. Without fully recovering, he couldn't use the Yen Emperor Way. If he didn't use the Yen Emperor Way, he wouldn't even be qualified to fight Chu Shiliang. Chu Shiliang discovered the ancient heavenly emperor's position, but he didn't act hastily. Instead, he changed direction and continued to search for Yen Ao. Yen Ao carried the Yen clan's 5 swords, had the human Tao Emperor Pagoda, the Yen ancestor's heart, and the Yen ancestor's arms and ears. His strength had reached the peak. The army was stationed at the node because it was extremely important. There was also Qitian Monkey King and Li Peiza. Therefore, Chu Shiliang still couldn't attack by force. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan would definitely go berserk if he killed too many experts of the Quang Mansion. Chu Shiliang slowly retreated. If he wanted to kill someone, he could definitely do it without shedding a drop of blood. His intelligence wasn't on the same level as Chu Ju and Chu Jun. Even his spiritual sense paled in comparison to him. Chapter 2875. Chu Shiliang had been back for 2 months, but he still hadn't done anything. Other than Chu Ju, no one else knew that he was back. On the 3rd month, Chu Shiliang took out a broken leg. It was filled with an ancient aura, majestic and powerful. The Flame Ancestor's right leg. Chu Ju, send experts to the Western Divine Mountain in 3 days to restrain Yi Qinghan. I'll deal with an expert first. Chu Shiliang said calmly. Chu Ju immediately bowed. Yes. Whoosh. Chu Shiliang leaped and his figure flashed. An hour later, he appeared in a deep mountain range. Eastern Divine Mountain and Western Divine Mountain, one in the east and one in the west. The Western Divine Mountain wasn't inferior to the Eastern Divine Mountain. It covered an area of 30 million square kilometers, and the mountain range was continuous. Chu Shiliang placed the Flame Ancestor's right leg in the middle of the Western Divine Mountain and laid down a strange formation. Ordinary people couldn't break in. Whoosh! A ray of light shot into the sky, and a vision appeared. Chu Shiliang didn't just place the Flame Ancestor's right leg. He also placed a treasure of heaven and earth, the Chaos Heavenly Lingji from the ancient times. This Chaos Heavenly Lingji was originally produced in the Chaos Heavenly Domain, and was comparable to a heavenly medicine. The most terrifying thing about it was that its vitality could allow a dying person to recover quickly and increase their strength by several times. As long as Yi Qinghan could eat it, he could probably become an emperor on the spot. Chu Shiliang's plan was definitely a big one, but he was confident that even if Yi Qinghan came personally, he wouldn't be able to get the Chaos Heavenly Lingji or the Flame Ancestor's right leg. This plan was a big deal for many people, but for Chu Shiliang, it was just a small matter. He had set up such a big plan in the past, and even the Flame Emperor died in battle. How could such a small plan be taken care of? Whoosh! Chu Shiliang retreated and hid in the void. He looked coldly at the Western Divine Mountain, waiting for Yi Qinghan to lead a large group of people out of the Cloud Ridge Basin. Light shone brightly in the sky. The birth of the divine medicine was obvious. Yi Qinghan sat in the Cloud Ridge Basin. His eyes flashed. He knew that a treasure had appeared, but he didn't move. Fan Yin's divination was extremely ominous, and it was targeted at Quang Fu. The appearance of the Chaos Treasure was nothing more than a diversion. In the distance, Class 1 Hall's army began to build bridges above the rift. They were prepared to send their army into Western Divine Mountain to seize the treasure. Yi Qinghan stood at the top of the mountain and watched Class 1 Hall's new Hall Master command the army to build the bridge. Elites continuously fell into the abyss, but they did not turn back. 3 days later, the huge bridge was penetrated by dozens of iron chains, but Yi Qinghan remained indifferent. Crack! Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He looked at the light emitted by the Chaos Treasure of Hope, then at Quang Fu, and fell silent for a long time. On this day, the ancient celestial emperor woke up and looked in the direction of Western Divine Mountain. He couldn't help but be shocked. He then looked at Yi Qinghan's indifference, and was even more shocked. Given Yi Qinghan's personality, he would definitely fight for the treasure as soon as it appeared. But now, he was completely indifferent. There was definitely a problem. Whoosh! The ancient celestial emperor's figure flashed, and he asked calmly, "Why aren't you moving?" "Be careful of luring the tiger away from the mountain," Yi Qinghan reminded him in a low voice. The ancient celestial emperor frowned and asked, "With me here, what are you afraid of?" Yi Qinghan slightly raised a smile, and asked, with your current strength, can you deal with someone like Yan Zhu? The ancient celestial emperor raised his eyebrows. After a long time, he shook his head and said, no, but other than primordial Yin Yang, Chu Shiliang, Yan Zhu, and uncle all died in battle. Is there anyone else who can threaten us? Yi Qinghan smiled and rubbed his fingertips. He looked up at the sky weakly and replied, there is, and he should be back soon. A treasure was born as soon as he returned. If this isn't luring the tiger away from the mountain, what is it? So you want to give up on this treasure? The ancient celestial emperor asked. Yi Qinghan licked the corner of his mouth and said in a low voice, give up. Why should I give up? I'm waiting for you to wake up. All of you, guard the node leading to the undying immortal realm. I'll go and see what treasures are there. If I can snatch them, I'll snatch them. If I can't, I'll retreat. Dean, please don't leave. They're back to kill you. If you walk right into their trap, wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? The ancient celestial emperor sighed and nodded silently. However, he was still a little worried and reminded, isn't it too risky for you to go alone? Yi Qinghan replied confidently, risky? No way. If they want to kill me, it's a sure thing. It's just that they won't kill me for now. As long as the alien star isn't destroyed, I'll be safe. They don't dare to kill me now, but I don't dare to take the risk either. That would be a waste of a great opportunity. Alright, be careful. After all, whether you can break through the 10 tribulations and 10 reincarnations is a legend. Don't be careless and you'll be finished, the ancient celestial emperor reminded him kindly. Yi Qinghan nodded and took out a large flag. As he waved it, the distant army could be seen clearly. Hua hua hua. Da. The army began to retreat, and the formation changed. More than 10 million soldiers returned to reinforce the army. The ancient massacre god and the inner sect army retreated with only one goal, which was to guard the node. This was the path of retreat, and they couldn't lose it. Once they lost it, the entire crazy manor would be destroyed. The assassin army also returned, but this time, they brought back a piece of bad news. Grandpa, we found traces of the Eastern Emperor Grand Sovereign, Immortal Emperor Qin Zun, and Jingfan Mountain Lord. Yi Tong rushed over and reported respectfully. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He didn't care about other people's news, but he had to care about the Eastern Emperor Grand Sovereign. This person was destined to die, but after the Battle of the Void Ridge, he had escaped and never appeared again. The Eastern Emperor clan had already left, but he didn't expect to appear again. Where's the Eastern Emperor Grand Sovereign? Yi Qinghan asked calmly. Yi Tong immediately replied, the entire Eastern Emperor clan is under the influence of Class 1 Hull. They're now rooted in the former Emperor Zhao's territory. 3 months to the north, and half a month to the west, you'll reach the Eastern Emperor clan's territory. This was based on Yi Tong's speed. If it was based on Yi Qinghan's speed, it would only take 1/10 of the time. Understood. Withdraw all the assassin army. Without my orders, don't go out again. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Yes, Grandpa. Yi Tong bowed and retreated, informing Lin Mo to recall the assassin army. The assassin army didn't have many people, only about 1,000 in total. After years of constant losses, there were less than 400 people left, but they were all elites. Yi Qinghan saw that all the troops had returned to the node, so he flew towards the Western Divine Mountain alone. The Western Divine Mountain was on the south side of the crack, which was also on the side of the crazy manor. The bridge was built outside the influence of the Yunling Basin, and there was nothing wrong with it. It couldn't be considered a diversion. However, Fan Yin's divination ability was getting stronger and stronger, which was why she was able to predict the great calamity. However, what she predicted was only superficial. To Chu Shiliang, her cultivation was just superficial. More than 10 days later, Yi Qinghan appeared at the western divine mountain. Chu Ju was ordering experts to attack the barrier, but it was like a natural moat that couldn't be opened. It's the flame ancestor's right leg and the primal chaos spirit mushroom. It's a pity that we can't break the barrier. Otherwise, we'd be able to obtain these two treasures. Ha ha ha, many people were discussing madly. Their voices were very loud, and they were all drooling over these two treasures. At this moment, even Chu Ju was envious. He wasn't interested in the flame ancestor's right leg, but he was interested in the chaos heavenly Ganoderma. Yi Qinghan hid in the forest, constantly diving into the depths of the western divine mountain. Soon, he found the specific names of the two treasures. After knowing that it was these two treasures, he began to think of taking the risk. It wasn't impossible to obtain the treasures under the Great Calamity. Chapter 2876. Yi Qinghan saw the supreme treasure alone, but he did not order the insane mansion to come and fight for it. Instead, he waited for Chu Ju to open the barrier so that he could fight for it himself. Chu Shiliang had miscalculated as well. He thought that Yi Qinghan would take the risk. If it was before, Yi Qinghan would definitely take the risk. However, Fan Yin reminded him that he would not take the insane mansion's fate as a joke. Fan Yin's words saved the insane mansion from losing a lot of people. Yi Qinghan did not mobilize the people of the insane mansion. Emperor Liang could not find a chance to kill the ancient heavenly emperor or Yan Ao. He could only wait silently. For half a month, Quang Fu did not make any moves. Yan Ao and the others were guarding the nodes. The experts were there, and so was the ancient heavenly emperor. In addition, Gu Jiutian, Monkey King Qitian, and the others were there. Even if Chu Ju was caught in the army, he would not be able to survive. However, Emperor Liang wanted to take Yan Ao's head. Hua! Emperor Liang slowly summoned a brand new emperor sword. It was stronger than the Liang emperor sword and had the word Liang on the back of the sword. Emperor Liang's aura merged with the sky. Yan Yunbei roamed around but could not find any trace of him. Hua! The Liang emperor sword was unsheathed. There was no fluctuation of emperor qi. Even the ancient heavenly emperor could not sense it. There were constant patrols. The conquering heaven camp, the ancient massacre god and the inner sect experts patrolled. Not even a fly could fly in. At this moment, there were 3 circles around the node. The outermost circle was the inner sect, the middle circle was the insane sect's older generation and the assassin army, and the innermost circle was Yan Ao and the ancient heavenly emperor. The entire army surrounded the 3 circles. Overall, there was no flaw. However, the number of people was just an illusion to the supreme beings. Emperor Liang could not kill so many experts, but his goal was simple. He only wanted to kill 2 people. Kill the ancient heavenly emperor first. Not only did he receive the inheritance of the flame emperor, but he also received the inheritance of the flame ancestor. The battle prowess of the flame ancestor's inheritance has always been hidden. Once it is unleashed in the future, it will be very dangerous. Emperor Liang thought silently. He was looking for an opportunity to kill the ancient heavenly emperor in one strike. He couldn't give the ancient heavenly emperor a chance to use the Yan emperor's Tao and the Yan ancestor's Tao. At this moment, Chu Juling was attacking the barrier with all his might to consume their energy. If it was before, Yi Qinghan would definitely bring the people from the Quang Manor to snatch it, but now that he was acting alone, it would be very difficult for him to snatch the treasure. However, he had no other choice, he could only wait for this group of people to help him open the enchantment, and then fight with Chu Ju. Yi Qinghan was also considering whether to snatch the flame ancestor's right leg or the chaos heavenly Lingji. The head-sized heavenly Lingji could increase the cultivation of many people. This was especially true for Shao Qin. His combat prowess might surpass a certain level and be comparable to the Yan Emperor. Hiss hiss, Yi Qinghan retracted his aura and took a deep breath. He quietly killed an outer member of the elite hall and disguised himself as an outer member of the elite hall. He stood at the periphery with blazing eyes. Chu Ju didn't know whether he had discovered Yi Qinghan or not, but his goal was to keep Yi Qinghan here so that Emperor Liang could have more time to kill the ancient heavenly emperor. Therefore, even if he discovered Yi Qinghan, he wouldn't say a word. The army had been attacking the enchantment for at least 3 months, and the light of the enchantment had dimmed. Of course, this was an opportunity given by Emperor Liang. When Yi Qinghan started to snatch the treasure, once he was defeated, a large group of people from the Kuang Manor would definitely come to his aid. At that time, the ancient heavenly emperor and Yan Ao would definitely be left alone. Even if there were still some people guarding them, Emperor Liang could still take them down. It was a small setup, but it showed how powerful Emperor Liang's calculations were. This kind of calculation didn't need to see through the heavenly secrets, it was purely a suppression of intelligence. Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The enchantment was about to shatter. Chu Ju pulled out his sword, and all the experts were in the air, waiting for the enchantment to shatter so that they could collect the treasure and wait for Yi Qinghan to snatch it. Yi Qinghan stood at the foot of the mountain. There were people everywhere, and no one would pay attention to a single person in the crowd. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stared at the enchantment. He was even calculating whether his next attack would be able to break the enchantment. He would definitely attack first, even if he had to suffer a heavy blow. 1 attack. 2 attacks. Boom! Whoosh! The enchantment swayed, and it seemed like it would shatter at any time. Huff huff huff, everyone held their breaths, and the tension was suffocating. Boom! Whoosh! Just as everyone was feeling nervous, Yi Qinghan suddenly exploded, and his body smashed into the enchantment with lightning speed. He directly shattered the enchantment, and with one hand, he slashed at Chu Ju, who was in the sky, and with the other, he grabbed the primal chaos heavenly Ganoderma. Hum! The moment Yi Qinghan attacked, Chu Ju pulled out his sword. His sword pierced through the clouds, heading straight for the heavenly Ganoderma. If Yi Qinghan dared to take the heavenly Ganoderma, this sword would definitely pierce through his body. Unfortunately, Chu Ju thought that Yi Qinghan would not dare to exchange heavy injuries for the heavenly Ganoderma, but Yi Qinghan dared to do so. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand to grab the heavenly Ganoderma, and at that moment, more than 10 sharp swords pierced through the clouds, stabbing into Yi Qinghan's back. Poochie! Boom! Chu Ju's sword pierced through Yi Qinghan's back, and the other group of people were unable to penetrate Yi Qinghan's defenses. They slammed Yi Qinghan into the ground. Bam! Poof! Yi Qinghan slammed into the ground, shattering the mountain rocks. Chu Ju's sword left his body, and his body spewed out blood. Even with his strength, he was unable to contain his injuries. Smart all your life, stupid this time. You have the life to obtain the heavenly Ganoderma, but do you have the life to enjoy it? Chu Ju gave a disdainful smile, and his eyes flashed with a hint of sternness, as though he looked down on Yi Qinghan's actions. Boom! Yi Qinghan's body rolled, and the blade in his hand fell. However, his right hand still tore off a piece of the heavenly Ganoderma the size of a child's palm, and stuffed it into his mouth without hesitation. The moment it entered his mouth, the terrifying chaos heavenly Ganoderma's medicinal effects were even more terrifying than a heavenly medicine. It instantly spread throughout his body, and the 2 wounds on his back and chest healed in an instant. The sharp sword chi was wiped out. It was too fast, and the medicinal effects were even more terrifying than a heavenly medicine. Yi Qinghan's body could not be contained, and his wounds almost split open again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom boom boom. His energy surged, and all the impurities were expelled from his wounds and pores. At the same time, he was trying to break through the bottleneck of the same realm. If he could break through that realm, he could defeat Chu Ju without being an emperor. Even if the ancient heavenly emperor did not use the Yen emperor's Tao and the human Tao, he would not be able to resist him. If he rushed over, he would be the second Yen emperor. Even if he was weak, he would not be too weak. Boom! Yi Qinghan roared, and his energy surged in all directions. Many people wanted to finish him off, but they were sent flying before they could even get close. Chu Ju was shocked, and his sword stabbed towards Yi Qinghan. Boom! Yi Qinghan struck out with his palm, and the burning sky art formed a huge flaming palm that could steal one's soul. It clashed with Chu Ju's sword, and the two of them were sent flying. Chapter 2877. Boom! The flaming palm was like the toughest shield in the world, directly bending Chu Ju's sword. Hum! Hum! Chu Ju retreated, the sword in his hand trembling and almost breaking. The bones in his hand were badly mangled. A sword wound appeared on Yi Qinghan's palm, and the sharp pain made him frown. However, the boundless power in his body surged, quickly blocking the pain. The boundless power of the heavenly medicine made the half of the alien planet's foundation grow a little stronger. If it was the size of a fist before, it was now the size of a needle. Even so, the power it contained was boundless, and the benefits were endless. Whoosh! Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan's blood and energy were surging. Under the impact of the power, the bottleneck was as hard as a rock and did not budge at all. Kill! Whoosh! Whoosh! Chu Ju was shocked. He did not expect the heavenly Ganoderma to be so terrifying. He ordered the army to surround Yi Qinghan while he attacked continuously. Every move was ruthless and merciless. It was as if he would not stop until he killed someone. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and grabbed the 7-foot sword in his palm. He kept retreating. At this moment, he could not focus on breaking through the bottleneck. He could only slash and retreat. Whoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, hundreds of powerful ancient gods and ancient immortals surrounded Yi Qinghan. No matter how fast they were, Yi Qinghan was overwhelmed. With Chu Ju holding them back, Yi Qinghan's battle robes didn't shatter, but his internal organs were on the verge of shattering. Poof! After a while, Yi Qinghan spat out blood. He slashed more than 10 people, but the people behind quickly closed in and filled the gap. Hum! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan seized the air and charged into the void, wanting to drag the battlefield to the sky. Boom! Bang! In an instant, he was suppressed into the valley by dozens of experts. Boom! In the blink of an eye, a mountain was flattened. The blade light pierced the clouds and could be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. Kill! Yi Qinghan gave up on breaking through the bottleneck and brandished the 7-foot craze. His aura soared through the Milky Way and defeated the other attackers in the blink of an eye. He cleaved his saber at Chu Ju, and the terrifying aura almost broke the arch sword as the saber and sword shook violently. Buzz buzz buzz, the webbing between his thumb and index finger was shaken by this ultra-fast frequency of vibration until it bled and almost broke. Thud thud thud. Yi Qinghan stomped on several mountain peaks before coming to a stop. However, before he could stabilize his qi and blood, dozens of experts charged at him from all directions, not giving him a chance to escape. Boom! Dozens of experts joined forces to form a boundless energy, and once again smashed Yi Qinghan to the ground. Bang! This time, Yi Qinghan borrowed the force to break through the void. Even though there were dozens of experts trying to suppress him, he still managed to break through the encirclement. However, he was struck by more than 10 swords, and his blood splattered across the galaxy. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chu Ju's sword pierced through the clouds and followed closely behind. His sword aura was like a rainbow, and every sword had the power to destroy immortal souls. It was extremely fast. Bang bang bang. Ka ka ka. Sword and saber collided as the two continued to rise into the void. The power generated was boundless. This time, the power was even more terrifying than the birth of a supreme treasure. The experts far away in the Yunling Basin saw that it was as if two stars were colliding in the sky. The power was too terrifying. The experts of the crazed manor had already come out of seclusion. They looked into the distance and saw hundreds of light spots flashing in the distance. Sword radiance swept through the void and pierced through the stars. Yi Qinghan was surrounded. At this time, anyone who wasn't stupid could see the situation clearly. Heavenly Monkey King and the others took a deep breath. They wanted to rush over to help, but the situation was clear. The ancient Heavenly Emperor was suppressing them. The opponent is waiting for us to come out and then take us down one by one. Whoever goes now will die. Do you still not understand? The ancient Heavenly Emperor reminded them. Heavenly Monkey King roared, "Are we going to let boss wait for death alone? They don't dare to kill him." The ancient Heavenly Emperor scolded angrily. "What if we lose?" Yan Yunbei frowned and asked. The ancient Heavenly Emperor's eyes flashed coldly. He pierced through the void. At this time, he could feel the danger, but he didn't know who the enemy was. After a long time, the ancient Heavenly Emperor looked at Gu Jiutian and whispered, "Jiutian, you go with Yan Yunbei and Mu Zhuang. The rest must stay." Gu Jiutian, Mu Zhuang, and Yan Yunbei. Two were in the light, one was in charge of the domain, and the other two were in charge of the attack. This was the best combination. The ancient Heavenly Emperor's team was the best choice. Okay. Gu Jiutian, Yan Yunbei, and Mu Zhuang nodded in unison. In a flash, they left. However, two were in the light, while one was in the dark. The distance between them was less than 10 meters. Anyone who ambushed Gu Jiutian would have to endure Yan Yunbei's sure-kill attack. Even if they didn't die, they would be severely injured. Mu Zhuang's sword could at least delay them for a while. The three of them moved faster and faster. The ancient Heavenly Emperor stood on high and watched for a long time. He didn't see anyone ambushing them, and the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. Whine! The immemorial master artifact roared and protected the ancient Heavenly Emperor's soul. Just as he was about to turn and leave, a sword radiance suddenly tore through the void and appeared in front of the ancient Heavenly Emperor's chest. Puchi! The good sword radiance was as fast as lightning. Even an immemorial master god couldn't escape from this sword. Boom! Bang! The ancient Heavenly Emperor subconsciously slammed his palm forward and hit the attacker's shoulder. However, his body was sent flying. Puff! The ancient Heavenly Emperor spat out blood and fell down the mountain. Boom! Swoosh swoosh swoosh! Qitian Monkey King and Yan Ao appeared at almost the same time. Their 5 swords merged into one, and a shocking staff strike split the void, preventing the attacker from attacking again. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Yan Ao's soul-slaying 5 swords tore through the void and slashed the attacker's chest. However, not a single drop of blood flowed. The opponent was too fast, so fast that Yan Ao could only slash at his afterimage. Boom! Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The shocking staff strike missed, and Chu Shiroyang's sword swept across Yan Ao's neck. However, the human Tao Emperor Pagoda turned into a barrier and blocked this sure-kill attack. Hum! Boom! The sword song vibrated as it collided with the good Emperor sword. The green lotus natal sword was broken. Chu Shiroyang was so close to killing his target. Unfortunately, he was only half a step away. The experts of the insane mansion surrounded the heavily injured ancient Heavenly Emperor, while the rest of them rushed toward Chu Shiroyang. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Hum. Whoosh. Chu Shiroyang was as fast as lightning, and his sword pierced toward the unconscious ancient heavenly emperor. His target this time was only the ancient heavenly emperor. If he could kill Yan Ao, then he would. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Hum. The 5 swords separated and collided with the good emperor's sword from 5 different directions. Yan Ao even pounced in front of the ancient heavenly emperor with his life. Boom boom boom. Hum. The good emperor's sword collided with the barrier formed by the emperor pagoda. In an instant, the world collapsed, and the human Tao emperor pagoda awakened. The shockwave caused the ground to crack. In a short moment, the experts didn't die, but tens of thousands of soldiers died. This was under Chu Shiryang's control. If he didn't control it, who knew how many people would die? Boom! Bang! Yan Ao's internal organs were almost shattered by the sword. Chu Shiryang attacked, and the human Tao Emperor Pagoda couldn't protect him. Puff! Yan Ao crashed into the ground and fell beside the ancient heavenly emperor. He was surrounded by the experts of the insane mansion, and they all pulled out their swords and glared at the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The experts of the insane mansion all pointed their swords at Chu Shiryang. However, they didn't recognize him. Moreover, Chu Shiryang was wearing an impenetrable mask. Chu Shiryang frowned as he looked at the 2 people on the ground. The ancient heavenly emperor couldn't be saved, but Yan Ao was only heavily injured. Humph, puff. The good emperor groaned and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. It wasn't easy for him to assassinate the ancient heavenly emperor. He was hit by the ancient heavenly emperor's palm, and the left half of his body was almost shattered. This power contained the Yan emperor's Tao. The ancient heavenly emperor knew that I was coming to kill him. He was already prepared. Chu Shiryang took a deep breath. Nothing could compare to God's plans. He did not expect that Fan Yin's words would ruin his plans. The power of the human Tao and the terrifying Yan Emperor's Tao surged within Chu Shiryang's body. He could kill all the experts of the insane mansion if he wanted to, but there was no need for that. Completely enraging Yi Qinghan wasn't a good thing. Whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chu Shiryang's body flashed and disappeared without a trace. He was too strong. Everyone in the insane mansion was like a pile of mud in front of him. If it wasn't for the human Tao Emperor Pagoda, Yan Ao would have died. Today, there's no more. If you want to watch, you can go to the WeChat public account to watch the Yan Emperor movie. WeChat public, Insane Mansion Army, or Guangfa Junchuan. Chapter 2878. Chu Shiryang left, heavily injuring 2 targets. The ancient heavenly emperor almost lost his life. One had to admit that this person who planned 2 big plans was very powerful. The ancient heavenly emperor's face was pale as a sword pierced through his heart. If he didn't subconsciously slap the Liang emperor sword in his body for a moment, his heart would have been destroyed by the sword qi. He wouldn't have survived even with the vine liquid. Yan Ao had the protection of the human Tao Emperor Pagoda. His life was saved by the pagoda twice, and he barely escaped death. The older generation experts of the crazy manor weren't injured because Chu Shiryang didn't attack them at all. He only wanted the lives of the ancient heavenly emperor and Yan Ao. In the void, countless people surrounded Yi Qinghan. Chu Ju was holding him back while the others continuously injured Yi Qinghan. Blood splattered everywhere. Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The energy in Yi Qinghan's body was inexhaustible. He continuously slashed out with his saber, killing countless experts. His injuries healed, but then he was injured again. Although the heavenly spirit mushroom quickly healed his injuries, he would be injured again after a short while. The burning sky art shattered the void, and space collapsed. His long legs swept out, faster than divine weapons. Some experts were kicked in the waist by Yi Qinghan and died on the spot. However, this group of people wasn't afraid of death. Their goal was clear, to capture Yi Qinghan alive. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chu Ju's combat power was the strongest, comparable to the ancient heavenly emperor. He suppressed Yi Qinghan to the point that he couldn't kill more people. Open, Yi Qinghan roared, wanting to break out of the encirclement. He swept out with his blade, and it was as if a star had exploded in the depths of the galaxy. The terrifying energy swept through everything. Bang! Bang bang bang! Hundreds of experts attacked the 7 feet of madness together, and the energy produced was enough to make people despair. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan was sent flying, but the experts of the elite hall were also sent flying. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, 3 figures attacked together. Gu Jiutian, Mu Zhuang, and Yan Yunbei. Whoosh whoosh! Puchi! Yan Yunbei kept dodging, and the dagger in his hand slashed people's throats and consciousness, taking their lives. Roar! Mu Zhua's wooden sword pierced through tens of thousands of miles and directly pierced through the bodies of more than 10 experts. Divine bodies kept falling from the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Gu Jiutian's spiritual will covered the area. Not only could he control the area, but those with weaker souls were also killed on the spot. Once these 3 people joined the fray, it was the same as having one of the emperors of all time. They instantly suppressed Class 1 Hall's offense and bought enough time for Yi Qinghan. In just a moment, Class 1 Hall was forced to retreat. Chu Ju looked extremely furious. He continuously attacked with his sword dozens of times, sending the 3 of them flying. However, Yi Qinghan had already charged over. His saber slashed at the sharp sword, sending Chu Ju flying more than 1,000 meters away. At this moment, Chu Shiliang stood in the dark and coldly watched Class 1 Hall and Yi Qinghan fight, but he did not intend to attack. He looked coldly at Yan Zhu's right leg, which was still floating in the valley. He knew that Yi Qinghan had already taken the Heavenlingji mushroom, but he did not intend to keep Yi Qinghan alive. The 4 elites of Insane Mansion killed hundreds of Class 1 Hall's peak 4th form elites, including some divine generals and celestial generals. Chu Ju could not hold on any longer and could only wave his hand to order his army to retreat. Whoosh! The army retreated, and even Yan Zhu's right leg was taken away, leaving behind a large number of corpses. Chu Shiliang's face was indifferent. As the person who planned these 2 battles, he no longer cared about life. At this moment, he only glanced at the corpses on the ground before turning around and leaving. Yi Qinghan's face was pale. He looked at Mu Zhuang and the others with fear. He did not have time to heal his injuries and immediately asked, "No one stopped you? What about the node?" Chu Shiliang only attacked after Mu Zhuang and the others left, so the 3 did not know that the ancient god emperor was almost killed. Even Yan Ao was heavily injured, so the 3 shook their heads. Go back quickly, Yi Qinghan's expression changed, and he rushed back to the Cloud Ridge Basin with his sword. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and the other 2 rushed through the air, breaking through the waves and breaking through the void. At this moment, the Insane Mansion's experts had sent the ancient god emperor, Yan Ao, and the others to a courtyard. The older generation experts of Insane Mansion surrounded the courtyard, blocking the sky and the surroundings. The second generation experts stood in a second circle, afraid that the enemy would attack again. Chess Saint looked at the older generation of Insane Mansion and saw that none of them were injured. Only some of the army were affected, and more than 20,000 people were killed. He pondered. The other party came prepared, and their goal is clear. They only want to kill the ancient god emperor and Yan Ao. They have one thing in common, and that is they are the backup plan of the Yan clan. A cold light flashed in Chess Saint's eyes, but he shook his head secretly. This was definitely not the only thing in common. The immemorial situation and the current situation were definitely connected. Since the other party wanted to kill the backup plan of the Yan clan, the insane mansion must be one of their targets. However, the other party obviously did not want to kill the people of Insane Mansion. In terms of intelligence, Chess Saint was not much inferior to Chu Shiliang. The other party did not kill the experts of Insane Mansion, but the two backup plans of the Yen clan. There must be something fishy. Chess Saint had some suspicions in his heart, but the hope was too slim, so he quickly cut it off. Let's defend this courtyard first and protect the lives of Yen Ao and the ancient god emperor. Everything will wait for Yi Zi to return. Chess Saint looked at the people of Insane Mansion and reminded them, their target might not be you, so there is no need to worry too much. Gu Qingyu immediately cupped his fists and said, thank you for your reminder. Chess Saint looked at the courtyard of the ancient god emperor and the others and slowly retreated. He looked at the sky and pondered silently. Then, he used the chessboard to deduce. The chess pieces were all filled with killing intent. The three armies faced each other, each with their own killing intent. It seemed like they were restraining each other and cleaning up the mess. How interesting. Chess Saint looked very excited. He was most interested in this kind of battle. It did not rely on martial strength, but on intelligence. A few days later, Yi Qinghan, Mu Zhuang, and Gu Jiutian arrived. All of them were still bleeding. They had not had the time to recover from their injuries during the crazy journey. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan landed in the army and quickly rushed to the main camp. Have there been any assassins recently? Yi Qinghan asked angrily. Report. Mansion Lord, a very powerful assassin came a few days ago. The army suffered more than 20,000 casualties. Other than Commander Yen Ao who was severely injured, the rest of the elders of Insane Mansion did not suffer any losses. However, the ancient god emperor seems to be on the verge of death. The expert in charge of intelligence quickly went forward and reported respectfully. Yi Qinghan's expression changed. However, before he could head to the node, Chess Saint walked out and said calmly, Yi, come here. I have something to tell you. It's very important. Now is not the time to be impulsive. Yi Qinghan originally wanted to save the ancient god emperor and Yen Ao first. However, when he saw Chess Saint shaking his head, he could not help but take a deep breath and followed Chess Saint to the main camp. Whoosh! Chess Saint waved his hand to conceal the secrets of heaven. He whispered a few words into Yi Qinghan's ear, causing his expression to change. Are you confident? Yi Qinghan asked hoarsely. Chess Saint shook his head and said indifferently, based on my deduction, I'm 70 to 80% confident. However, I don't have any evidence. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and nodded. Thank you for your advice. I will take note. At this moment, Chu Shiliang was lying on his side in Elite Hall. His eyes flashed with a strange light. Only Chu Ju was standing respectfully. He felt that Chu Shiliang seemed to have made a mistake. It was rare for such an intelligent expert to make a mistake. Chu Shiliang glanced at Chu Ju and asked indifferently, do you think that I have made a mistake? Chu Ju immediately bowed and said, Master, Chu Ju would never dare. Chapter 2879. Inside Class 1 Hall, Chu Shiliang looked at Chu Ju's respectful attitude and laughed. Ha ha ha. Chu Ju, I thought you would be smarter than Chu Jun. Unfortunately, you didn't fully comprehend it. Chu Shiliang sighed. Remember your name. It's not to kill, but to survive. Yes, I understand what you mean. Chu Ju said respectfully. Sigh, Chu Shiliang sighed and waved his hand. The ancient heavenly emperor and Yen Ao should still be alive. However, the ancient heavenly emperor won't be able to recover within 10,000 years. Once he recovers, everything will be settled. Let him be. Chu Ju bowed and asked, Master, what's the next step? Wait. Brother Yin Yang will refine the alien star within 10,000 years. He will return in 10,000 years. We will wait patiently. Chu Shiliang said calmly. Cloud Ridge Basin. Yi Qinghan gave out the last 2 drops of vine liquid. 1.5 drops went into the ancient heavenly emperor's mouth and the second drop went to Yen Ao. Then, he left the courtyard. Emperor Yi, gather all of Insane Manor's troops and retreat to the undying immortal world. Apart from the older generation, the second and third generation, as well as the Assassin Legion, no one else is allowed to stay. Yi Qinghan said solemnly. Retreat? Were they giving up? Everyone from Insane Manor tried to persuade him. If they gave up now, they would die without a burial ground. Yi Qinghan smiled wryly and said in a low voice, it's better to live than to die. Class 1 Hall has returned with a supreme existence, and even the Dean couldn't withstand the attack from that sword, much less you. In terms of numbers, they didn't have as many as Class 1 Hall. In terms of experts, the older generation of Insane Manor and all the super experts working together might not be able to withstand Chu Shiliang. How could they fight? They would be courting death. Yi Qinghan's attitude was firm, leaving no room for objection. The older generation, second generation, and third generation of the Insane Manor still had a lot of room for improvement, and the same was true for the Assassin Legion. It didn't matter whether the others stayed or not, as they wouldn't be able to make any breakthroughs in a short period of time. Yi Qinghan ordered, my son, take the inner sect and station them at the boundary steel outside the Crying Ghost Ridge. Also, disperse the 2 heaven-conquering battalions and 1,000,000 private soldiers. Order them to hide their troops and wait to be summoned. The 300,000 primordial gods of slaughter are to return to the minor planes and hide their troops as well. Do not return to the world of eternity under any circumstances. Hiding the weapons and going into hiding, this was the last step of the plan. Everyone from Crazed Manor was extremely depressed. They had no hope of winning. Back then, even Flame Emperor had been defeated. How could Crazed Manor win against Class 1 Hall? A single super elite was enough to defeat Class 1 Hall, and the person who had ruled the world by himself for thousands of years was about to return. This might be my last order. No one is allowed to object. Yi Qinghan glanced at everyone and said coldly. No one could object to this order. No matter what, Class 1 Hall couldn't kill them all. If they did, there wouldn't be many people left in the world of immortals, the world of eternity would be destroyed, and the minor planes would be destroyed. There would be no need for Class 1 Hall to exist. The person who ruled the world by himself wouldn't care about the army. They would be safer if they hid their troops. Sheng Yan, Zhu Hai, Li Ying, and the others looked at Yi Qinghan with dissatisfaction. Manor Lord Yi, you are the one who brought us out to take revenge. But we are only halfway through the battle. Why are you giving up so easily? Li Ying asked firmly. A helpless smile appeared on Yi Qinghan's face. He looked up at the sky and muttered, you are seeking revenge, but I also want to preserve my life. Not only do I want to preserve my own life, but I also want to preserve everyone's lives. If I can see a glimmer of hope, why wouldn't I want to fight to the death? But now, I really can't see any hope. The plan set up in the immemorial era directly took everyone in. Whether it is strength or the overall situation, we are far inferior to Class 1 Hall. They know us like the back of their hand, but we don't know anything. How can we fight? Don't forget the oath you made to the ancient killing god. Even if you die, you won't regret it. Sheng Yan was burning with anger. This time, they had returned to the world of immortals and taken half of their revenge. However, 3 of his brothers had died. If they were to give up now, he would be the first to disagree. Yi Qinghan looked at Sheng Yan and the others with guilt and said hoarsely, this time, I will die, and you will live. I am very sorry. In the beginning, I didn't know that this was a series of plans set up by Dictator. If I had known, I definitely wouldn't have disturbed your peaceful lives. I would have fought alone. Zhu Hai stepped forward and patted Yi Qinghan's shoulder. He said firmly, "Don't say that. You want to live, but we also want to live freely. We understand that you are not afraid of death. You just don't want your brothers to die in vain. I respect your decision. But in the final battle, I will accompany you. If I die, I don't care. Otherwise, even if I live, I will be a slave to Class 1 Hall." He thought that Yi Qinghan would gladly agree, but Yi Qinghan shook his head and firmly said, "No, this is the final battle. No one else can participate. You all need to wait. If I really do break through the 10 tribulations, 10 reincarnations and transcend the myriad laws of nature, you all can help me. At that time, he won't be able to do anything to me." The 10 tribulations and 10 lifetimes sounded easy, but that was just a legend. Yi Qinghan didn't know if he could survive the 10th tribulation. Even Chu Shiyang didn't know. Immortal Emperor Yin Yang didn't know either. Otherwise, why would they have to go through so much trouble? I have left you a way out. From the boundary stone outside Crying Ghost Ridge, you can teleport to the subsidiary plane of Greedy Wolf Star. There is another boundary stone there that leads to the edge of the universe, Dark Moon Star. As long as you reach there, you will be safe for the time being. Immortal Emperor Yin Yang won't be bothered to attack you. Others won't have the chance to attack you even if they want to, Yi Qinghan said calmly. What about you? Chess Sage stared at Yi Qinghan and asked solemnly. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He clenched his fists and exhaled. Then, he said coldly, I need to deal with some private matters, such as the Eastern Emperor Grand Exalt. Everyone fell silent. They didn't want to have a strong start but a weak finish. Yi Qinghan said simply, act immediately. Ancient Massacre God and the Outer Sect's hidden troops will hide in the minor planes. As for the other private armies, the army will hide in the everlasting immortal world. Huang, you will lead the Inner Sect and Crazy Mansion Academy's students to Dark Moon Star. Brother Yen, you will be in charge of breaking the boundary stone of Eternal World. Brother Monkey King, you will be in charge of breaking the boundary stone outside Crying Ghost Ridge. If you all start retreating, I will cover you all as you enter Greedy Wolf Great World's boundary stone. Yes. No one from Crazy Mansion objected anymore. There was no need for them to object anymore. They let Yi Qinghan set up the final retreat route and face Immortal Emperor Yin Yang in peace. The last two armies were the Heaven-Conquering Camp's 1st Battalion and the Thorny Dao Legion. Yi Qinghan looked at Chess Sage and whispered, Sage, you will retreat from the ancient immortal world with the older generation of Crazy Mansion. As for the 1st Battalion, after 5,000 years, let them hide in the ancient immortal world and escape. Chapter 2880. Yi Qinghan had arranged everything, except for his own escape route, because he had no way out. Either he broke through the 10 tribulations in 10 lifetimes, or he died. Hua. Yi Qinghan left the Yunling Basin alone and headed north. The north was Class 1 Hall's sphere of influence, and the Eastern Emperor's bloodline relied on the fact that they were one of the 10 great ancient bloodlines to take root there. They were also taken care of by Class 1 Hall, and they were given a decent territory. In the past few years, their overall strength had increased by many times, especially the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable. With his qi and blood returning to his ancestral roots and the ancestral artifact, he had become an overlord. He had also become a deacon of Class 1 Hall's external hall. However, on this day, the outer hall once again welcomed a new personnel adjustment. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable was full of smiles, because he had been promoted again. He had become an elder of the outer hall, second only to the hall master of the outer hall. Congratulations, Elder Donghuang. In just 10,000 years, you have been promoted from an external hall member to an external hall elder. If the hall chief is promoted again, the authority of the hall chief will definitely be yours. When that time comes, you must take good care of him. That's right, that's right. Elder Dong Huang is talented and intelligent, and his cultivation is growing rapidly. His status is rising steadily, and this old man is very envious. Today, we are holding a banquet at the joyous welcoming restaurant. Elder Dong Huang must give us face. More than 10 deacons and 3 elders of the outer hall came forward to celebrate. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's face was full of smiles. It could be said that it was a double blessing. His cultivation had broken through and he had reached the great perfection of the divine general realm. Now that his status had risen again, the next step was to truly be below one person and above everyone else. Ha ha ha. Well said, well said. Today, we will not return until we are drunk at the joyous welcoming restaurant. Everyone here is a senior, so please give the Grand Venerable some pointers. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable was beaming with joy, but the arrogance in his eyes was self-evident. The territory of the Eastern Emperor's bloodline was vast and boundless. It was the ancestral land of the Eastern Emperor's bloodline, and now that it was returned to them, the Eastern Emperor's bloodline soared to the heavens in one step. At this time, the Donghuang family seemed to have forgotten Yi Qinghan's promise. They did not feel the slightest sense of crisis. Only a little girl was still frowning. The Eastern Emperor Immortal had lent Yi Qinghan 30,000 gold back then. It was also at that time that Yi Qinghan had turned the tables. Unfortunately, it was also at that time that he had almost killed Yi Qinghan. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable had been aggressive and had contacted several forces to force Yi Qinghan into a dead end. He had even caused the death of more than 38,000 ancient god of slaughter army. This enmity was absolutely irreconcilable. At that moment, Donghuang Xian was sitting in the attic and looking to the south. She knew that Yi Qinghan was leading in same manner to a decisive battle against Class 1 Hall, and both sides were occupying half of the territory. Unfortunately, it was right in front of her, and she could not go to him. Night fell, and the stars shone down on the ground. Outside the Eastern Emperor's ancestral land, there were countless buildings that were brightly lit. This was the most prosperous area, and the joyous welcome pavilion was opposite the Eastern Emperor clan. At this time, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable walked into the joyous welcome pavilion under the escort of a crowd. His career was envied by others, but only his daughter, Donghuang Xian, did not care about it, because his career was exchanged with his own fate. The Hall Master of Class 1 Hall's Heavenly Hall was temporarily controlled by the grandson of the Taigu Emperor, Yuan Di. This person had a high position and authority, and even the main hall had to give him face 3 times. This person's cultivation was already close to that of the Taigu Emperor, and he could step into that realm at any time. And the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable was on this big tree, and the resources in his hands were endless. In order to become an elder of the outer hall, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable had even agreed to marry Donghuang Xian to Yuan Di's grandson, Lu Feng. 3 months later, it would be a joyous day. Many people still did not know about it, otherwise, even the Hall Master of the outer hall would have to give the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable some face. At this moment, in Class 1 Hall's largest private room, there were more than 20 experts sitting there. They were all elders and deacons of Class 1 Hall's outer hall, and only the Hall Master of Class 1 Hall's outer hall did not come. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable looked around and snorted coldly in his heart. He said with disdain, "If you don't come to congratulate me today, you won't have the chance in the future." Everyone had flattering looks on their faces, even the elders had flattering looks on their faces. Although the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable was strong, the speed of his advancement was definitely related. Furthermore, the person behind him was definitely very strong. How could these old foxes not notice it? Cough cough, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable coughed dryly and pretended to be imposing. Today, I have 3 joyous things to announce. Everyone who has come today, I approve of all of you. If you need any help in the future, just say it. As for the others, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable said coldly. Everyone immediately sat up straight. Since the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable dared to say such words, these three things must not be small. The first thing is that everyone knows that I have been promoted to an elder today. The second thing is that I have already reached the great circle of the fourth state and have been conferred the title of Supreme Immortal General by the main hall. As for the third thing, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable kept everyone in suspense and drank a cup of tea. Looking at everyone's expressions, he couldn't help but feel pleased with himself. First, congratulations to the Supreme Immortal General. But what is the third thing? Don't worry about us old brothers. Everyone asked one after another. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable said proudly, the third big thing is that in 3 months, my daughter will be married to the new Hall Master of Heaven, Lord Lu Feng. Ha ha ha, although heaven has been destroyed, it is currently being rebuilt. The new Hall Master, Lord Lu Feng, is the grandson of Lord Yuan Di, and a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. Now, Lord Lu Feng is about to ascend to the top and become the Taigu Emperor. Everyone was shocked. They did not expect that the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable would actually have someone who was about to become the Taigu Emperor. Furthermore, he was the new Hall Master of Heaven. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable had a complacent look on his face as he beamed with joy. He raised his wine cup and said to everyone, cheers for these 3 joyous events. Ha ha ha, congratulations, congratulations. This is a once-in-a-lifetime joyous event. It's worth a toast. Everyone stood up one after another. At this moment, their attitude was even more flattering than before. At this time, the joyous welcoming tower welcomed a fiend. His face was cold, his eyes were evil, and the killing intent at the corner of his mouth made people shudder. Yi Qinghan came. He did not wear a mask, but there were not many people who knew him. Ever since he entered the ancient immortal world, he had always been wearing a mask, and even if there were people who knew him, they would only be the upper echelons of Class 1 Hall. Welcome, esteemed guest. Please come in, come in. A servant immediately bowed and said. Yi Qinghan looked at him coldly and said calmly, I heard that the Eastern Emperor Grand Elder is holding a banquet here today to celebrate his promotion. I came here to congratulate him, I wonder which floor he is on. Which room? Hearing that, the servant immediately became even more respectful. To be able to participate in the celebration of the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's promotion, his status was definitely not ordinary, so he quickly said, My lord, please. Elder Dong Huang is currently celebrating with a group of elders and deacons on the top floor. Please follow me. Yi Qinghan nodded and followed the servant to the top floor. Tap, 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 Yi Qinghan's footsteps were light and crisp as he walked up the stairs. His hands were clasped behind his back as if he didn't have the slightest bit of killing intent. After a while, the servant brought Yi Qinghan to the top floor and pointed to the private room on the south side. Sir, it's inside. You can go in yourself. I am not qualified to enter the private room. Yi Qinghan waved his hand, casually threw some resources over, and slowly pushed the door open. Creak. The door opened, and Yi Qinghan's face appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In an instant, the private room fell into a deathly silence. Chapter 2881. The moment the door opened, there was dead silence. The people here were all in charge of intelligence. There were many who knew Yi Qinghan, but there were also some who did not know him. However, no one in the world knew Yi Qinghan, so it was impossible for the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable not to know him. In that instant, the originally complacent Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's face turned pale, and he could not even hold his wine cup. Who are you? Who let you in? Are you blind? Can't you see that most of the elders and deacons of the outer hall of the Class 1 hall are here? An old man reprimanded coldly and angrily. You're really blind. Today is Elder Dong Huang's big day. You must have picked the wrong place to cause trouble, right? A few people who did not know Yi Qinghan stood up and reprimanded him. Yi Qinghan swept his devilish gaze around, his aura was even stronger than that of the Taigu Emperor. Yi. Yi. Mansion Chief Yi. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable seemed to have forgotten about Yi Qinghan a long time ago. It had been tens of thousands of years, but Yi Qinghan had never come to find him. Hua. Only then did everyone react and look at Yi Qinghan in fear. How many Mansion Chief Yi could there be in the world? There was only one person from the Crazy Manor, the person who killed his way into the heaven headquarters of the Class 1 Hall and killed Chu Jun, as well as 1,000,000 heaven experts. In the Class 1 Hall, he had long become a demon, and his prestige seemed to have surpassed that of the Flame Emperor. After all, the Flame Emperor was an ancient person, and all the legends were just legends. Even if these 20 to 30 elders and deacons were to join forces, how could they compare to Chu Jun? Could they be compared to the army of heaven that had been fighting all year round? It was obvious that they could not. This group of people did not even have the courage to resist. Yi Qinghan coldly walked to the side of the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable and slowly sat down. He said indifferently, "Everyone, please take a seat." Hiss hiss hiss. Cluck cluck cluck, many people's teeth chattered as they sucked in cold air and fidgeted. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan slowly raised his hand and forced the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable to sit down. He swept his gaze over the elders and deacons of Class 1 Hall's outer hall and asked calmly, "Is this meal delicious?" "Good." "Not good." "Delicious." Everyone stuttered. Yi Qinghan said calmly, "As long as it's delicious. Enjoy your meal. My patience is limited. Don't challenge my bottom line." Whoosh. Pucci. Ah. An elder who thought he could escape jumped out of the window, but Yi Qinghan threw out 2 chopsticks with a wave of his hand and pierced through the elder's head. The boundless killing intent destroyed the elder's soul and nailed his corpse to the ground. Hiss hiss. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable sucked in a breath of cold air, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. His cultivation had already advanced to the immortal general, and he was one of the best, but facing Yi Qinghan now, he didn't even have the courage to fight. "Yi. Mansion Chief, please forgive me. Back then, I was blind." The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable said in a pleading tone, "I beg you, for the sake of my daughter, Xian, spare me this time. I just stepped into the immortal general realm, I don't want to die." The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable immediately knelt down and kowtowed to beg for mercy. A good life was waiting for him, how could he be willing to die like this? Dong dong dong, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's head fiercely knocked onto the floor, the sound spreading far and wide. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan immediately lifted the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable up and asked coldly, "Are you going to eat this send-off meal or not?" The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable was in despair. Yi Qinghan's ruthlessness was well known to the world. Back then, in order to take revenge, he had killed Sikong Tan Lang in front of everyone and hung his corpse on the city wall. No one dared to provoke such a ruthless person. Clatter clatter clatter, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable picked up his chopsticks, his hands trembling, he glanced at the many elders and deacons from the corner of his eyes, but they were even more afraid. The people of the outer hall specialized in intelligence and understood Yi Qinghan the best, so they only dared to eat silently, not even raising their heads. Yi Qinghan leaned against the chair, his hands tapping on the table, waiting silently. Giving the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable a send-off meal was 10,000 times more painful than killing him directly. The final despair, without seeing the light of dawn, was the most terrifying thing. How could the 38,000 lives of the ancient killing god be compensated with the life of the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable? Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed fiercely. Every time he thought back to the battle in the demon ceiling cave, he wanted to torture the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable to death. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable ate very slowly, but he felt that time was passing even slower. Now that the joyous welcoming tower had lost its outer hall elder, the Eastern Emperor clan would definitely receive the news. If the Eastern Emperor could come, he might be able to keep his life, and even if the grandson of the Yuan Emperor, Lu Feng, could come, he might be able to keep his life. Lu Feng had said that he would come to propose marriage soon. If it was a coincidence, he would be able to make it in time. It would be a coincidence, but also very unlucky, that he would bump into Yi Qinghan's iron wall. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable ate slowly, trying his best to stall for time. He ate plate after plate until his stomach was about to explode, but he didn't dare to use his power to refine the food in his stomach, so he could only force himself to eat. Yi Qinghan leaned against the chair, his right hand clenched into a fist and supported his cheek, coldly looking at the pitiful appearance of the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable. After a long time, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable felt that he could no longer eat, but seeing Yi Qinghan's cold gaze, he had no choice but to force himself to eat. Roar! Hua! Yi Qinghan took out a short dagger and drew a few marks on the table, and said indifferently, "Senior Supreme, 38,000 lives, I want to cut 38,000 wounds on your body. If you can take it, I will spare your life. If you can't, then don't blame me for being ruthless." The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable kicked his legs in despair, looking at Yi Qinghan in fear. His entire body was stiff, and he couldn't even raise the slightest bit of strength. "However, before the execution, I want to clean up some trash so that they won't be frightened and disturb me." Swish! 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 Roar! Poochie! Yi Qinghan transformed into a swimming dragon, faster than lightning, and directly pierced through everyone's throats. Roar! Hua! One corpse after another slumped on the chair, their eyes filled with despair, but no one could resist. Force could crush a person's soul, but Yi Qinghan liked to make a move, and did not like to move the soul. 20 to 30 corpses had all fallen. Including the one outside, no one could escape. Yi Qinghan. Don't go too far. Killing people is nothing more than a nod of the head. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable roared, "My daughter helped you before, yet you are ungrateful." Yi Qinghan wiped away the blood on the dagger and coldly replied, "I also saved her life and helped you protect the ancestral artifact. An eye for an eye. That's it. You can't kill me. Ah. My son-in-law is the grandson of the Yuan, Lu Feng. If you dare to kill me, he will definitely kill everyone in the crazy manner and take revenge for me." The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable roared hysterically. Yi Qinghan sneered, the dagger directly stabbed into the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's palm, and replied disdainfully, "Forget about the grandson of the Yuan, even if the Yuan himself came, he wouldn't dare to protect you from me." Poochie. Blood splattered everywhere from the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's palm as he screamed in pain. "That's it. There's still 38,000 knives left. If you shout now, I'll really look down on you." Hua! Yi Qinghan pulled out his blade and stabbed it into the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's right hand. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart, and this stab was even more painful than a stab. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable roared miserably, his face twisted as he summoned the ancestral artifact with his left hand. The Eastern Emperor Immortal Bell shook the heavens, but before it could recover, it was suppressed by Yi Qinghan. Boom! Just at this time, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's father and all the experts of the Eastern Emperor clan arrived. Even the Eastern Emperor Immortal broke through the door and entered. Looking at the private room filled with corpses, when he raised his eyes and saw Yi Qinghan, his eyes widened. Chapter 2882. All the elites of the Eastern clan, including Donghuang Xian, did not expect to see Yi Qinghan in Class 1 Hall's territory. This was just like how Class 1 Hall's Hall Master Chu Jun appeared in Class 1 Hall's territory. They did not even dare to think about it. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air as their hair stood on end. When the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable saw the Eastern Emperor Immortal, it was as if he had grabbed onto his last life-saving straw. He wailed, "Siener, save me. I only have one daughter, and I'm marrying you to Lu Feng for your own good." Yi Qinghan looked coldly at the experts of the Eastern Emperor bloodline, including Dong Huangxian. Today, he had already made it clear that he wanted to kill the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable. Dong Huangxian couldn't stop him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here. "It's good that you're here. Help me count. 38,000 cuts. Don't make me cut more than that." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. PSSH. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and turned it into a flash of lightning. In an instant, he stabbed at least hundreds of times. Every stab cut off a small piece of flesh. They were very small and directly scraped off his hand, leaving not even a piece of flesh behind. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable was startled at first, then he screamed miserably. His face was sinister, but his entire body was pressed down by Yi Qinghan, unable to move at all. Bang bang bang. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's immortal spirit power was sealed by Yi Qinghan. His limbs and bones were empty, and he couldn't even muster up a single bit of strength. Sweating profusely, the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's face became much paler. The experts of the Eastern Emperor clan were all restless. They wanted to pull out their swords to save the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable, but they were all stopped by the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's father, the Eastern Emperor Ing. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a demonic sneer as he said indifferently, "You can attack, but I can't guarantee how many people from the Donghuang bloodline will be left alive in the end." Dong Huangying did not dare to move. Yi Qinghan, this madman, was a man of his words. Since he dared to skin Donghuang Taizun alive in front of Donghuang Immortal, it meant that Yi Qinghan no longer put Donghuang Immortal in his eyes. PSSH.A. Yi Qinghan swung his blade and cut off another piece of flesh, causing the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's face to twist in pain. "Donghuang Immortal. You unfilial son. You didn't even make a sound when you saw your father being tortured and killed like this?" The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable let out a mournful roar, as if he was still placing his hopes on the Eastern Emperor Immortal. Dong Huangxian had already given up on the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable, but when she saw that Yi Qinghan was actually going to skin the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable alive, she still couldn't bear it. Bang! Dong Huangxian knelt in front of Yi Qinghan and said respectfully, "Xian, knows that I shouldn't ask you for anything, but can you give him a quick death and stop torturing him?" The Eastern Emperor Super Venerable almost went crazy from anger. He originally thought that the Eastern Emperor Immortal would speak up to protect him, but who knew that the Eastern Emperor Immortal would also want Yi Qinghan to give him a quick death. Slap! Yi Qinghan swung his hand and slapped him in the face, knocking out a few of his teeth. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at the Eastern Emperor Immortal and said indifferently, "Since Xian has spoken, if I don't give you a discount, it would be unavoidable for me to let you down. I'll give you a discount, 19,000 blades, not a single blade less. From now on, you don't have to plead for leniency anymore, otherwise, if you open your mouth and say something, I'll kill 100 people from the Eastern Emperor's bloodline until the clan is exterminated, and if he can withstand 19,000 blades, I'll spare his life." Hiss, 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 Dong Huangxian sucked in a breath of cold air, beads of sweat falling from his forehead, he pursed his lips and did not say anything else. Poochie. Swoosh. Swoosh. Yi Qinghan raised his blade and slashed it down again and again. No matter how much the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable roared, he did not even blink. Until a day later, the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable did not have much flesh left on his body, but he was still not dead. Yi Qinghan did not harm the foundation of his life at all. After more than 18,000 slashes, the bone marrow of the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable's face was cut out, but his soul and heart were still preserved. If he had a supreme immortal treasure, he could still reconstruct his flesh and blood body. The Eastern Emperor Super Venerable looked at his own body in despair. He hated Yi Qinghan like never before. Yi Qinghan's ability to torture people was simply too terrifying. I must survive. Sooner or later, I will return all of this pain to all of you. The Eastern Emperor Super Venerable roared in his heart, but his heart was about to stop beating. Ka-cha. Yi Qinghan began to cut open the bones. This was the most painful part. The pain of broken bones was heart-wrenching. The Eastern Emperor Super Venerable couldn't even shout now. His soul was enduring a heart-wrenching pain, but he had no choice but to watch helplessly. He even counted how many slashes he had suffered, afraid that Yi Qinghan would slash him a few more times. 18,900 slashes. 18,901 slashes. 18,990 slashes, there were only 10 slashes left. Other than the Eastern Emperor, no one dared to look anymore. They all went out to vomit. Puchi. Ka-cha. Following that were 2 more slashes, Yi Qinghan broke the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable's shoulder blade. The bone marrow was shaved out by the short blade. Puchi. Ka. Another 6 slashes. Out of the 100 or so bones of the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable, only his back was supporting him. The other bones were all shattered. It was the last 2 slashes. The Eastern Emperor Super Venerable was wild with joy. The last 2 slashes, he wouldn't have to die. Just at this time, Yi Qinghan stopped his blade and looked out the window. He looked coldly at the void and said calmly, "Since you're here, then come in." There were no fluctuations of emotion outside the window, not even a trace of power leaked out. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed with a cold light, and said coldly, "If you don't come out, when I catch you, you will receive the same punishment as the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable." Hua. It was the grandson of the Yuan Emperor, Lu Feng. His cultivation was close to that of the Taigu Emperor, and he was also very young. At this moment, he was looking at Yi Qinghan with high fighting spirit, and said gloomily, "Yi Qinghan, it's not good to torture this emperor's future father-in-law like this, right? Let him go and I'll spare your life." The Eastern Emperor Super Venerable really wanted to curse this Lu Feng. Why didn't he come earlier or later? Why did he have to come at the last moment? 19,000 slashes. There were only 2 slashes left. No one knew how terrifying the pain the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable was enduring. Yi Qinghan revealed an evil smile and sneered, "If your grandfather, the Yuan Emperor, were here personally, do you think he would dare to speak to me like this?" Lu Feng's eyes flashed with a cold light. He originally wanted to show off in front of the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable, but who knew that Yi Qinghan wouldn't give him the chance. "My grandfather is one of the 12 immemorial emperors. In terms of cultivation, no one dared to be disrespectful to him during the immemorial era. Who do you think you are?" Lu Feng held the emperor's sword and coldly reprimanded. Hua. Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and turned the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable's head. The skeleton looked a little sinister. "Lord Super Venerable, do you think that your son-in-law can save you?" Yi Qinghan asked with an evil smile. Other than some fluctuations in his soul, the Eastern Emperor Super Venerable was no longer breathing. How could he respond to Yi Qinghan's words? If he could, he would definitely curse Lu Feng to get rid of the worry in his heart. Chapter 2883. Lu Feng knew that he was not a match for Yi Qinghan, but how could he admit defeat in front of everyone? Pretending to be strong might not be true. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, "Supreme Marquis, I will take away the last 2 blades in front of your future son-in-law, and we will be even." Puchi. Yi Qinghan's blade pierced through his heart. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's soul, who was still holding on to hope, was about to fall into chaos and destruction. Hua. He pulled out his blade and stabbed it again. This blade pierced through his sea of consciousness and wiped out the soul of the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable. Yi Qinghan had come with killing intent, how could he let the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable live? However, before he killed him, he had to hold on to some hope, allowing him to withstand 19,000 slashes. Only then did the last strike completely destroy the soul of the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable. The Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable's eyes went from anticipation to despair. In just an instant, the change was too fast. He was unable to endure it and died under the most painful torture. Ka-cha! Yi Qinghan pushed with his hand, causing all of the bones of the Eastern Emperor Grand Venerable to break. Not a single complete bone was left, and all of the flesh and blood were swallowed by the multicolored snake, not a single drop was wasted. Dong Huangying's eyes were about to split open, he wanted to rush up and crush Yi Qinghan, but he did not have the courage to do so. Yi Qinghan looked at Dong Huangying coldly and said, "Dong Huangying, the enmity between us is over. If you want to make enmity again, I will accept it, but I guarantee that the next time, your entire clan will die, and no one will survive." "Yi Qinghan, you are going too far." Dong Huangying scolded angrily, "You don't need to give him any hope at all. Let him die a little faster." Yi Qinghan sneered and asked, "Then my 38,000 brothers who died, who gave them a quick death? But in the end, I didn't die at his hands." Dong Huangying's hair was white, and he seemed to have aged 1,000 years. He could only weakly argue. "Ha ha ha," Yi Qinghan laughed, then asked sternly, "Why does Marquis Zun Long have such a bad impression of me? Why did you try to kill me again and again? Why did you set up a death trap for me in the demon ceiling cave? I didn't know him before, and he had no enmity with me. If it wasn't for your good son, none of this would have happened. Now, you're telling me that the deaths of over 38,000 ancient slaughter gods had nothing to do with him? What a joke. Dong Huang won. I've given you a chance. Don't reject it. You'll regret this sooner or later." Boom. Before Dong Huangying could finish his threat, Yi Qinghan's palm landed on Dong Huangying's head. The terrifying power directly penetrated Dong Huangying's vitality and soul, completely erasing him. "I'm sorry, I don't like regrets. Since you want revenge, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Crack. Dong Huangying's skull had already shattered into pieces. There was no sign of life in his body at all. He had died too quickly. There was no pain at all. His soul and life force had been wiped out in an instant. Only Lu Feng was left. However, he now understood that there was still a huge gap between him and Yi Qinghan. Therefore, he didn't dare to make a move anymore. He also didn't dare to threaten Yi Qinghan anymore. "Yi. Mansion Lord Yi, there is no enmity between us. My engagement with Dong Huangxian has also ended," Lu Feng said in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan turned around and looked at Lu Feng outside the window. He said indifferently, "Come in and talk. I have something to ask you." Gulp, Lu Feng swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He didn't dare to enter the room. That would be an act of seeking death. Yi Qinghan revealed an evil smile and reminded him indifferently, "If I want to kill you, I can let you run 300 to 500 miles. You won't be able to escape from my palm. Come in." His cold and calm voice was filled with command. Lu Feng took a deep breath. He had no choice but to fly into the private room. Looking at the corpses on the ground, his spine was covered in cold sweat. Whoosh! The multicolored snake swooped down and took away all the corpses. These corpses looked eerie, but they were delicious. "Sit," Yi Qinghan said coldly. Whoosh! Lu Feng sat down slowly. His hand was still holding the emperor sword, ready to unsheath it at any moment. "Let's talk about your grandfather's cause of death," Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Lu Feng frowned and said in a deep voice, "Isn't this something that everyone knows? He died at the hands of the Yen Zhu. It's all on the surface. The Yen Zhu wanted to kill the Abyss Emperor and the others. If the immemorial Yin Yang Emperor didn't make a move, would the 12 immemorial emperors be able to kill the Yen Zhu and the Liang Emperor?" Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. Lu Feng frowned and asked, "What do you mean? Are you saying that my grandfather died without knowing why?" "That's right. During the immemorial era, other than the Taigu Emperor, who was killed by the Yan Emperor, everyone else died without knowing why," Yi Qinghan said with certainty. Lu Feng's eyelids twitched. He had some understanding of the immemorial era, but he didn't know that the Taigu Emperor had died without knowing why. To put it simply, if the Yan Zhu wanted to kill them, he might not even need the Liang Emperor's help. If the Liang Emperor were to make a move, the 12 immemorial emperors wouldn't be able to survive even if they worked together. Moreover, the Yan Emperor had already killed 2 of them. Yi Qinghan reminded him calmly. Lu Feng fell silent. As the Taigu Emperor's descendants, they worshipped the Taigu Emperor too much. They thought that the Taigu Emperor was truly supreme. One Taigu Emperor might not be as strong as the Yan Zhu, but 3 to 5 of them working together would be more than enough to kill the Yan Zhu. However, it seemed like the difference in strength between the Taigu Emperor and the Yan Zhu was too great. I want you to think about it carefully. There are bound to be clues about the things that Yuan Di left behind. Of course, if you don't care about how Yuan Di died, you don't have to think about it. Yi Qinghan leaned back in his chair and looked straight at Lu Feng. He didn't care about Lu Feng's character, but he really wanted to find out the cause of the immemorial war and everything that had happened. In order to survive, Lu Feng could give up on the Eastern Emperor immortal. However, he couldn't give up on finding out the cause of his grandfather's death just because of danger. I didn't care about it before, so I can't remember if grandfather left any clues behind. Why don't you let me go back first? I'll check all the libraries in the ancestral land. I'll definitely have a reply within 3 years. Lu Feng said softly. Humph, Yi Qinghan coldly snorted and said with disdain, in the final battle, you weren't of any use. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I'm too lazy to kill someone like you. Go back and think about it. If you want to find out the cause of Yuan Di's death, you can contact me. If you don't want to, then let Yuan Di die in vain. Yes, Lu Feng will take his leave for now. I promise that I have nothing to do with the Eastern Emperor clan anymore. In the future, I won't kill anyone from the Quang clan. If it really comes down to a battle to the death, I'll choose an expert of the same level as me to stall for time. Lu Feng bowed slightly. He didn't forget to express his goodwill before leaving, afraid that Yi Qinghan would suddenly kill him. Yi Qinghan coldly watched Lu Feng leave. The corner of his mouth raised in disdain. No matter how strong this kind of person's cultivation was, the Taigu Emperor was his end. Whether he died or not, it didn't matter. At this time, all the experts of the Eastern Emperor clan had returned. Dong Huangxian was also among them. Looking at the miserable state of the Eastern Emperor Grand Sovereign, he couldn't bear to look anymore. Yi Qinghan calmly said, Dong Huangxian, from now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other. I'll spare your Eastern Emperor bloodline this time. The next time you offend me, you won't be so lucky. The experts of the Eastern Emperor clan looked at the dead Dong Huangying and Eastern Emperor Grand Sovereign and kept quiet out of fear. They didn't dare to go against him and could only move aside to let Yi Qinghan leave. Hua! Yi Qinghan floated away and didn't say anything else. His path with Dong Huangxian had ended here. Chapter 2884. Lu Feng returned. However, he did not go to Heavenly Hall's headquarters. Instead, he went to Emperor Yuan's ancestral land, where Emperor Yuan's bloodline was stationed. There were countless experts in the ancestral land, and there were at least a few 100 million people. This bloodline had never fallen. Although Chu Jun was the hall master at that time, he did not dare to offend this bloodline. There were 2 old men hidden here, and they were both Emperor Yuan's sons. They were already half dead, but their cultivation base was heaven-defying. Once they recovered, their battle prowess might be even more terrifying than Lu Feng's. They had never claimed the title of emperor, not because they did not want to, but because they did not have the chance. The two old men spent most of their time in Emperor Yuan's library. They did not sweep the floor. Instead, they took care of the library and read the ancient books. They even memorized Emperor Yuan's Taigu Emperor's techniques. They could use each and every move to the pinnacle. In terms of battle prowess, they might even surpass Emperor Yuan. Lu Huang and Lu Xun were the 9th and 17th sons of the Yuan Emperor, respectively. They were still alive. It had to be said that their strength was not ordinary. Moreover, they had not sealed themselves for even a little bit of time. For example, Lu Feng had been sealed from the immemorial era until millions of years ago. Hua. Lu Feng arrived at the library and said respectfully, "Seventh uncle, 17th uncle, your son, Lu Feng, has returned." The two old men had just finished cleaning up the library. The library was spotless and brightly lit. It was like a palace. There were the Yuan Emperor's calligraphy and Emperor's techniques, as well as his insights. It also contained the two old men's countless years of hard work. This library would definitely be a supreme treasure if it was taken out. "And, it's good that you came back to visit us. We don't have much time left." Emperor Yuan's son, Lu Huang, had white hair and wrinkled skin. When he smiled, his entire face scrunched together. His hoarse voice was heart-wrenching. These two old men were living fossils. Who knew how many secrets they had hidden in their hearts? Hua. Lu Feng knelt on the ground and asked respectfully, "Seventh uncle, 17th uncle, your son wants to ask you too about the Taigu Emperor's battle. How did Emperor Yuan die?" Lu Huang and Lu Xun were stunned. They stared at Lu Feng for a long time before slowly asking, "Feng, why are you suddenly asking about this? Did someone say something to you?" "Yes, someone told me that the cause of Emperor Yuan's death was strange. Among the 12 immemorial emperors, other than the Taigu Emperor who was killed by the Flame Emperor, the other Taigu emperors all died mysteriously." Lu Feng respectfully said, "Emperor Yuan is my grandfather. This is related to the glory of the emperor's inheritance. As the emperor's inheritance, if I don't dare to investigate how Emperor Yuan died, I would be ashamed of my bloodline and strength. 7th uncle and 17th uncle, please be honest. How did Emperor Yuan die?" Lu Huang and Lu Xun looked at each other and remained silent for a long time. Lu Feng raised his head and stared at the two elders. He was unwilling to give up on investigating the true cause of Emperor Yuan's death. The Flame Emperor was defeated and his army of 3 million was annihilated. The other immemorial emperors, including Chu Jun, were severely injured. The Flame Emperor used the Flame Emperor's Great Way. When the Flame Emperor's Great Way was used, the heavenly Tao was suppressed and all laws submitted to it. The immemorial emperors were severely injured. However, at the last moment, a sword suddenly appeared in the sky and pierced through the Flame Emperor's soul. Chu Jun cooperated and pierced the Flame Emperor's heart. After the battle, the other immemorial emperors joined forces again and said that they wanted to kill Chu Shiliang and the Flame Ancestor. However, after they left for less than half a year, only Emperor Jing Tian, Emperor Axe, the immemorial spacetime over God, and Gu He Shanhe returned alive. They were exhausted and on the verge of death. Emperor Lu took a deep breath and said helplessly as he leaned against the armchair. After the 4 Taigu emperors and the immemorial spacetime master God returned, they went into seclusion and didn't mention anything about what happened back then. They didn't even see their children and grandchildren. Your 17th uncle and I also suspected what happened back then. However, Lord Chu Jun told us with certainty that they had surrounded Yan Zhu and Chu Shiliang and that Lord Chu Jun himself was severely injured. There seemed to be nothing to investigate, so we didn't mention it again. Actually, I have another question. That is, why haven't the corpses of the primordial emperors appeared since we besieged Ancestor Yan and Chu Shiliang back then? Even though Lord Chu Jun and the other primordial emperors were severely injured, they should have brought their corpses back. However, none of them were brought back, Lu Xun said in a deep voice. Lu Feng frowned. The death of the Taigu emperors was too strange. Why didn't the immemorial spacetime master god mention anything about what happened back then? There must be an inside story. Emperor Yuan didn't leave behind any clues. Lu Feng asked in astonishment. No matter what, the Taigu emperor was still a Taigu emperor. He definitely had a premonition about his own life and death. He wouldn't leave without leaving behind a single word. The two old men looked at each other again. They seemed to be hesitating whether or not to push Lu Feng into a dangerous place. After all, no one had entered that place before. 7th uncle and 17th uncle, please help me. I want to become an emperor. However, I need to investigate this matter thoroughly so that I can become an emperor with a perfect Tao heart, Lu Feng requested firmly. Hiss, hoo, the two old men breathed out a mouthful of turbid air. They leaned against their armchairs and remained silent for a long time. Lu Feng didn't move. Although he was afraid of Yi Qinghan, he wasn't afraid of death when he was determined to do something. After a long time, Emperor Lu said in a low voice, seeking the heavenly domain. Lu Feng raised his eyebrows and asked, where is this place? Emperor Lu shook his head and sighed. Back then, Emperor Father left behind the word seeking the heavenly domain. Since then, he disappeared without a trace. No one knows if he's alive or dead. Lu Feng stood up and said in a deep voice, I'll go investigate. However, Lu Xun shook his head and said with certainty, don't ask the main hall. Moreover, I advise you to stop investigating. I'm worried, that's right. It's better to live than to die. After all, this concerns the life and death of hundreds of millions of direct descendants and billions of collateral descendants. What can you do even if you find out? Can you defy the heavens? Emperor Lu reminded indifferently. A cold light flashed in Lu Feng's eyes. He was ambitious enough. Currently, the only emperor was the ancient heavenly emperor. Once he became an emperor, he killed an emperor with a single palm strike. If he became an emperor, he wouldn't be weak. Once this matter was verified, his Tao heart would be strengthened and his battle prowess would increase many times. Hiss. Hiss. Lu Feng took a deep breath, cupped his fists, bowed, and left. Emperor Lu and Lu Xun looked at each other and sighed, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. At this moment, Lu Feng's figure flashed through the sky. His speed was so fast that it left people speechless. He was heading straight for the Heavenly Hall's headquarters, which was only a chasm away from the Yunling Basin. It could stop others, but it couldn't stop him, who was approaching the Taigu Emperor's realm. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had already returned to the Yunling Basin and started to devour the Chaos Heavenly Lingji. This time, he didn't give it to others but refined it himself. He wanted to become an emperor and couldn't wait. Chapter 2885. Yi Qinghan wanted to proclaim himself emperor. He didn't want to end up like Yan Emperor, who couldn't even make it in time. It was truly a pity that a prodigy of his generation died at the hands of a villain. Even if I can't break the eons, I won't let anyone bully me. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly as he swallowed a piece of heaven Lingji. Terrifying chaos heavenly spiritual energy surged through his limbs and bones. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, boundless energy tempered his body, breaking through the bottleneck, and perfecting the alien star route. The earth-shattering energy gathered and broke through the bottleneck. It was like the barrier between the ancient immortal world and the immortal world. It couldn't be broken through without a node. Although Yi Qinghan was in pain, the dragon tiger form cleared his mind and blocked out all the pain. He was madly trying to break through the bottleneck. Once he broke through the bottleneck, his strength and realm would be perfected. He was becoming more and more proficient in the Inferno technique. The reversal of the Dharma and Logos allowed him to erupt with destructive power. Terrifying pressure filled the area within 100,000 miles. All the experts of crazed manner woke up except for the ancient heavenly emperor, who was severely injured. His heart was about to explode. Even if he survived, it was only because of a drop of vine fluid and his own strength. Whoosh! Yan Ao used a great ability to cover Yi Qing Han with the human Tao Emperor Pagoda and set up a great formation to prevent anyone from disturbing him. The pagoda was still actively absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, cooperating with Yi Qing Han to break through the bottleneck. Whoosh! The experts of crazed manner unsheathed their weapons and prepared for battle. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The conquering heaven camp quickly spread out and moved according to the changes in the stars, surrounding the older experts of crazed manner in the center. The army unsheathed their weapons and glared at the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, crazed manner was excited. Yi Qing Han clearly wanted to proclaim himself emperor. If he wanted to, why would he allow himself to be captured? Emperor Liang did Yi Qing Han a huge favor by not killing the ancient heavenly emperor and Yan Ao. Instead, he gave the chaos heavenly Lingji to Yi Qing Han. Unfortunately, Yan Ao's right leg wasn't brought back. Otherwise, Yan Ao's strength would rise to another level. Whoosh dot whoosh. In the instant that Yi Qing Han broke through to the immortal emperor realm, the Tao of the heavens and earth appeared. It was incomparably clear. When everyone looked at their own Tao, many flaws were exposed. At this moment, Yi Qing Han had become a mirror for everyone to see their own shortcomings and how to take the next step. The path had already been pointed out, and at this moment, the ones who benefited the most were the Heavenly Conquest Camp. The Heavenly Conquest Camp's average cultivation was around the third stage realm, but there was too much room for improvement. Boom boom boom. Whoosh! In an instant, at least tens of thousands of people broke through and entered the fourth state. However, this was only the beginning. More and more people stepped into the fourth state. The second-level experts directly stepped into the third level. They didn't need to expend too much energy and their overall strength increased by countless times. Boom boom boom. Swish swish swish, crack crack crack. Tribulation clouds formed and gathered together. It was incomparably terrifying. For an army to contend against a heaven-defying lightning tribulation, one could imagine how powerful it was. The sky immediately darkened. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. Only Yi Qing Han's golden light shone in all directions, forcibly tearing apart the darkness. Endless Tao appeared and became more and more perfect, allowing more people to break through to the third stage. The second and third generations of the insane manner and the assassin army improved even more crazily. They were close to perfection among their peers and were truly invincible. At this moment, Yi Qing Han's physical body was broken and his soul was about to explode. The heaven-burning defying technique broke through the great circle but still couldn't break through the peace of the emperor realm. Boom! Crack crack crack. Endless power turned into lightning and struck the bottleneck of the emperor realm. After day and night, a small part of the peace was finally broken. 1,000 miles of dike could be destroyed by an ant's nest. As long as a small part was broken, the entire bottleneck would be shattered by Yi Qing Han sooner or later. Bang! The tiny person in the sea of consciousness gathered the principles of the heaven-burning defying technique. The palm print of the heaven-burning defying technique raised a sea of bitterness and fiercely imprinted on the bottleneck. In an instant, mountains and rivers cracked and the sea of bitterness sank. Every palm contained the principles of the heaven-burning defying technique. The order was changed and the principles no longer existed. With every palm strike, Yi Qing Han's state of mind became clearer and clearer. He was getting closer and closer to the Mahayana realm. A brand new path was slowly forming. Heaven-burning defying technique. Once this path was formed, it wouldn't lose to the Yan Emperor's great Tao. Yi Qinghan's current cultivation would definitely lose to the Yan Emperor. The only difference was in this path. If the heaven-burning defying technique reached the Mahayana realm, he would definitely be on par with the Yan Emperor's great Tao. He might even be stronger. This was because he was standing on top of the alien star root. It was equivalent to stepping on the shoulders of a giant. Whoosh! When the embryonic form of the great Tao appeared, Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up. It was as if he had seen through the illusion and saw the light. Originally, it was pitch black in front of him. Now, it was no longer despair. Heaven-burning defying technique. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and formed seals with his palms. He constantly mobilized the alien star root to form the complete heaven-burning defying technique. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, a new great Tao appeared in the sky. It was the heaven-defying great Tao. This was no longer the great Tao that was derived from Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. It was a great Tao that was truly above the void. It was now below the heaven-defying great Tao. The heaven-burning defying technique was suppressed by the heaven-burning defying technique. Whoosh! The heaven-burning defying technique, the reincarnation Tao, the human Tao, all the great Taos had appeared and were on par with each other. At this moment, all the cultivators of the great Tao in the world benefited. Their cultivation rose rapidly and their combat strength increased infinitely. Boom! The merciless great Tao appeared and was on par with all the other great Taos. Yi Mengxi's pupils shrank. She looked up at the void. The merciless Tao seal and the merciless great Tao merged together. Her cultivation rose infinitely and she fell into the merciless great Tao. Whoosh! Yi Mengxi disappeared for no reason and entered the merciless great Tao. Everyone in the crazed manner was shocked but they could not stop her. Whoosh! The merciless great Tao was hidden in the void as if it had never appeared. Shigu almost went crazy. He watched as Yi Mengxi entered the merciless great Tao and blasted his palm into the void. However, the merciless great Tao disappeared and took Yi Mengxi with it. Ah! Shigu roared. The power of madness tore through the heavens. Between madness and demonic, he shattered the Emperor technique. Emperor force surrounded him, breaking through the shackles and successfully becoming an emperor. Get out of here! Shigu was furious. He tore the sky with his 5 fingers, wanting to take Yi Mengxi back. Everyone in the crazed manner lowered their heads. Yi Mengxi entering the merciless great Tao had caused Shigu, the infatuated man, to fall into madness. In an instant, the heavens and earth were in sorrow. The Emperor Tribulation had appeared. Whoosh! Whoosh! The lightning came too suddenly and blasted towards Shiji's head. It was like a sharp sword that contained endless power. Once it pierced through Shiji's head, even 10 lives would not be enough to kill him. This was the Emperor Tribulation, the Taigu Emperor Tribulation. The stronger the person, the stronger the Emperor Tribulation. If people like Yan Emperor and Yi Qinghan were to undergo the tribulation, the ancient immortal world might not be able to withstand such pressure. Shigu escaped and killed his way to the top of the sky. He shook the lightning tribulation with his hands and flesh flew everywhere. Boom! Boom! A star was destroyed. Shigu seized the space to refine it and formed a golden brick. However, a divine weapon of this level was directly smashed into dust by the lightning tribulation and disappeared. At this moment, the great Tao was clear and the myriad of laws appeared. More and more people from the heaven-conquering camp broke through. The crazed manners generation was also settling down. After all these years of killing, they were all self-taught talents. Without a teacher, there were many flaws in their cultivation. Whoosh! Gu Qingyu drew his sword and rushed into the sky. He also wanted to become an emperor. Chapter 2886. Gu Qingyu unsheathed his sword and soared into the sky. This was the best time to proclaim himself as an emperor. All the Daos had appeared and were stimulated by the against the heaven Dao. Even the Yen Emperor Dao was stimulated. The Yin Yang Dao was the only Dao that was on par with the heaven Dao. No one was controlling the Yen Emperor Dao. If the Yen Emperor came personally, he would definitely suppress the heaven Dao. After all, even the ancient heavenly emperor could suppress the heaven Dao for a moment when he controlled the Yen Emperor Dao. No wonder the immemorial Yin Yang Dao would set up a series of traps to kill the Yen Emperor in the cradle. This kind of person was too terrifying. Yi Qinghan was still trying to break through to the Emperor realm. The against the heaven Dao was not formed in a short period of time. It would take at least a few hundred years or even 1,000 years. 1,000 years was enough for many people to advance. In just a few months, the 5 million troops went crazy. At least 1/5 of them stepped into the fourth state. Even if they were in the initial stages of the fourth state, it was still a terrifying force when 1 million people worked together. The most terrifying thing was that when the 5 million troops worked together, they burst out with power at the same time. The power generated was even more terrifying than the Taigu Emperor. The 5 million troops resisted a crazy lightning tribulation. This lightning tribulation surpassed the Emperor tribulation. As more and more people broke through, the lightning tribulation did not decrease but increased instead. Its lethality became stronger and stronger. Whoosh! Boom! The troops were in sync. Their spears pierced the sky and formed a force of lightning to resist the lightning tribulation. They were repelled every time. Countless people coughed out blood, but no one retreated. If they retreated now, less than 1/10 of the 5 million troops would be left. Time flew. Another few months passed. The tribulation did not end. The Daos were on par with each other. The against the heaven Dao had developed from the embryonic stage to the initial stage. However, the distance from completion and perfection was too big. Yi Qinghan's Emperor Realm bottleneck was collapsing. However, this was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. The longer he lasted, the more Kuang Manor would gain. After all, the Daos were too clear at this time. It was so clear that it was easy to grasp. This was the true meaning of 1,000 miles a day. Shi Gu and Gu Qingyu were the first to undergo their tribulations. One was crazy and the other had been cultivating for too many years. They were like unsheathed swords. Once out of the sheath, they could destroy the immortal soul. In the second year, the owner soared into the sky and the thunder tribulation gathered. Qitian Monkey King soared into the sky, his heaven-startling cudgel roaring as his Emperor Dharma followed. In the third year, Yan Yunbei seized the opportunity, but the dagger was even more terrifying than the Emperor's sword. Emperor techniques overflowed into the heavens, and the heavens surged. Dark clouds covered the sky and covered the sun, and lightning filled the sky. It was terrifying to the extreme. In Elite Hall, Chu Shiliang always reclined on the dragon throne, but he controlled the situation in the world. My lord, Yi Qinghan has already broken through to the Emperor realm. His Grand Daos are at the same level, causing the Grand Daos to become exceptionally clear. Kuang Manor has benefited greatly. 5 people have already broken through the Emperor realm bottleneck and started their tribulations, Chu Ju said respectfully. Chu Shiliang's eyes remained calm as he lay on the chair, as if he had just heard a very ordinary thing. Wait. It was a simple sentence, but it was filled with command and determination. Chu Ju did not ask further, as though he really understood Chu Shiliang's heart. Just like that, Elite Hall watched as Kuang Manor grew stronger and more people tried to break through to the Emperor realm, but they did not do anything to stop them. Otherwise, if Chu Shiliang did, no one in Kuang Manor would survive the tribulation. In a short 20 years, Shi Gu, Gu Qingyu, the boss, the Heaven Monkey King, and Yan Yunbei broke through the Emperor tribulation. Their bodies were almost torn apart, and their blood was boiling. However, emperor techniques followed, and their bodies were reconstructed under the immortal light. Their vitality was boundless, and their battle prowess was at least 10 times stronger. Now, everyone's battle prowess was comparable to the Taigu Emperor, and even surpassed some of the Taigu Emperor. Lu Feng had arrived a long time ago, but he did not dare to go too far. He stared at the grand dais in the sky, and the emperor's might gathered. It seemed that 20 years had passed, and his realm was getting more and more solid. However, he did not call himself an emperor. In fact, he already had the strength to call himself an emperor. 20 years later, the sky shone brightly, and the alien star appeared. It kept dodging in the depths of the universe. The immemorial yin-yang broke through the ages and chased after the alien star. The alien star seemed to be purposely attracting the attention of the immemorial yin-yang, not allowing him to return and disturb Yi Qinghan. Just like that, it fled with him in the galaxy. Boom! Ka ka ka. The immemorial yin-yang was too powerful. One palm strike was enough to destroy a galaxy, and the dimensions collapsed. Everywhere it passed, everything fell into a state of nirvana. The immemorial emperors were nothing more than ants in front of a person who ruled over the ages. However, the alien star was not that easy to destroy. It chased after him for hundreds of years, and now, many of the Kuang Manor's experts were strong enough to call themselves emperors. Some were more ambitious and wanted to become emperors, while others were worried that they could not withstand the emperor's tribulation. Hence, after hundreds of years, the Kuang Manor only had 5 emperors. On this day, the immemorial yin-yang seemed to be enraged. It controlled the immemorial yin-yang sword across the dimensions, and it was about to be unsheathed. The monarch sword roared, and the sword hilt tore apart the seals. Its sword chi was strong enough to pierce through the immortal world. Jian Qinxue was shocked, and he held on to the immemorial yin-yang immortal sword tightly. Kill, Yi Qinghan. The immemorial yin-yang imperial sword's will was clear, and it could not be resisted. Jian Qinxue's eyes flashed, and he held on to the monarch sword tightly. The yin-yang 8 trigrams around him pierced through the clouds and shone brightly. The entire heaven-suppressing prefecture district was covered in snow. 111. Jian Qinxue used her life to block the monarch sword. Her strength was comparable to Yi Qinghan, and she was the most low-key among them all. Hua! The yin-yang immortal tome's sword skill soared into the sky, and sword chi surrounded the sky. The monarch sword was not unsheathed, but it had the power to take away the Taigu Emperor's life. Xiu 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 xiu. Hua! Jian Qinxue stood on the immemorial yin-yang imperial sword and floated in the sky. The monarch sword could not break free from her restraints, and it was forcefully trapped on the spot. Woo woo woo, the snow roared, and the ground was dyed white, covering the entire Qing Zun immortal empire. In just a few moments, Jian Qinxue's hair turned white, and her life force was almost exhausted. She was using her life to buy time for Yi Qinghan. Outside the universe's edge, the immemorial yin-yang immortal monarch's eyes flashed coldly, and his eyes seemed to be able to see through the order of time and space, locking onto Jian Qinxue's soul. You're courting death. The autocratic person let out a shrill voice that sounded like a man and a woman speaking at the same time. It was too horrifying, so horrifying that it sent chills down one's spine. Even though they were separated by countless miles, the voice was so clear that it reached Jian Qinxue's ears. Jian Qinxue's face was pale, and she wore a snow robe. Even her hair had turned white, but when she heard the threat from the immemorial yin-yang imperial sword, she smiled, revealing a row of white teeth. You taught me the sword skill, and he taught me how to be a person. You can take my life, but that is only after you return. Jian Qinxue replied firmly. Hua! The monarch's sword pierced through the ground with its scabbard, covering the land with snow and freezing everything within 1,000 miles. The heaven-suppressing palace turned into a land of ice and snow. A perfect ice sculpture was formed outside of the heaven-suppressing palace. It was translucent and looked like the most perfect piece of art. She was the mother of the world, and her eyes could see through the void. She had completely sealed the immemorial yin-yang imperial sword. The autocratic person was indeed capable of doing so, but if he wanted to defeat his disciple, he had to return personally. Immemorial yin-yang imperial monarch taught Jian Qinshue through the monarch sword, thinking that Jian Qinshue would listen to him. But he thought too much. The people of Kuang Manor would never betray him, let alone the master's wife. Chapter 2887. Jian Qinshue turned into an ice sculpture just to seal the immemorial yin-yang celestial sword. This sword was indeed powerful, but immemorial yin-yang would never have thought that Jian Qinshue would be willing to sacrifice her life for Yi Qinghan. Immemorial yin-yang chose the right person, but at the same time, he chose the wrong person. The reason why he chose the right person was because Jian Qinshue was too important to Yi Qinghan. Once she made a move, she would not be on guard. If she was betrayed by the most important person, her Tao heart would be shattered. 10 tribulations 10 lifetimes, perhaps from 50% to 1%. However, he also chose the wrong person. He should not have chosen Jian Qinshue. Jian Qinshue followed Yi Qinghan since she was young. She stayed with Wang Shi and the young Yi Qinghan. She had no desires. Anyone would betray Yi Qinghan, but she would not. Jian Qinshue suppressed the immemorial yin-yang celestial sword with the determination to die. Immemorial yin-yang celestial sword had no choice but to give up on controlling the emperor sword to kill Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was fully focused on breaking through to the emperor realm. If he was disturbed by immemorial yin-yang celestial sword, he would definitely die. Immemorial yin-yang celestial sword flashed coldly. It trampled on the river of stars and traveled 1,000,000 miles in an instant. It began to chase after the alien star. It was quiet below Yunling Basin. It had been 1,000 years since Yi Qinghan broke through to the emperor realm. The 5 million people of the expedition Heaven Camp had all entered the fourth state. Their combat power was very balanced. 5 million people went through the tribulation at the same time. The Yunling Basin was shattered and almost sunk. The lightning tribulation here was far stronger than Gu Qingyu or Qitian Monkey Kings. It was also because the expedition Heaven Camp had gone through the tribulation that the experts of Kuang Fu, who did not have much confidence, began to break through to the emperor realm. They were prepared to join hands with Yi Qinghan and fight to the death with elite Hull. Yi Qinxing, Hua Lingtian, and Li Peiza took the lead and rushed into the clouds. Yan Ao, Lin Wutian, Sua Shuguang, Shen Yan, Zhu Hai, and Wolf Girl followed closely. The strongest Mu Zhuang was still settling. He was comprehending the origin of the great Tao of sword and had already merged with it. His body turned into a sharp sword and pierced through the dome. The second generation, Lin Shukong, and Desolate Lord Yi, their cultivation levels were not as high as the older generation. However, after 1,000 years of accumulation, the gap was not far. The final battle had already begun. If they did not break through now, there would be no more chances. Hence, they chose to take the risk and try to break through to the emperor realm. What no one had expected was that Yi Qinghan was a late bloomer. His final step was to comprehend 6 Daos at the same time. His blood and qi surged, and he began to attack Yi Qinghan's bloodline. Although he was a second generation, he was now returning to his ancestral roots. Apart from the heaven-defying Tao that Yi Qinghan did not know and could not cultivate, he was replicating almost all of the other profound meanings. Previously, Dark Dance had replicated 70% of Yi Qinghan's combat power, but now he was replicating 90%. Only Defiant Way couldn't replicate it. Back then, Great God Chen Tian was born with a halo on his head and called himself Great God Chen Tian. Now, he did not disappoint and spent 1,000 years to reach the top. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan held a long saber in his hand. It was not as domineering as Zhong Kuang, but it was light and nimble. He soared into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, he reached the depths of the universe. His lightning tribulation was different from the others. It was like Yi Qinghan did not cultivate defiant way. The ancient immortal world might not be able to withstand his lightning tribulation. Among the third generation of Kuang Fu, only Yi Tong and Lin Mo were truly top-notch experts. Jiang Qiufeng and the others did some research. The two stepped through the void, wielding swords and sabers. The two had worked together countless times. Their hearts and minds were one, and their attacks were deadly. If they worked together, their lightning tribulation would be extremely powerful, but if they worked together, it would be easier for them to overcome it. At this moment, Lu Feng could not take it anymore. Not only was Yi Qinghan giving him a terrifying pressure, even the wooden stake in the distance was giving him an irresistible pressure. A man with a wooden sword. This man carried too many memories. His wooden sword was stronger than Lin Wutian's. After dying once, he was even more restrained. He looked like an ordinary person, but when you looked at him, even from the back, you wouldn't dare to look directly at him. Whoosh! Lu Feng could not wait any longer. He had to break through first. He soared into the sky and returned to heaven. Lightning tribulation filled the sky. In Kuang Fu, there were only 3 truly invincible experts who had not undergone lightning tribulation. Yi Qinghan, the wooden stake, and Green Lotus Sword Immortal. The others were not qualified to undergo lightning tribulation. Even if they did, they would fail and lose their lives. At this moment, Green Lotus took root beside Yi Qinghan. It turned into a peerless flower that competed with the heavenly Tao. Hum! A heavenly melody sounded in the sky. The sword song spread for countless miles. Green Lotus took root in the ground, but it used qi to create a figure that danced with the sword song. It was magnificent. Whoosh! 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 3 green lotuses appeared. Each of them had the power to steal one's soul. No one dared to look at them directly. Whoosh! 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 Green Lotus swayed and released endless medicinal properties, which were all absorbed by Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan had already swallowed the last piece of sky Lingji. He defied the heavenly Tao and slowly stepped onto the other Taos. He was on par with the heavenly Tao and the Taos of Yin and Yang. He was close to the Mahayana realm, but he could not break through because he lacked half of the alien star source. Half of the reason he was close to the Mahayana realm was because of his strength and talent. The other half was because of the sky Lingji. Even if he cultivated for another 2,000 years, he still could not break through that realm. However, the bottleneck of the Emperor realm had been broken. Boom! Whoosh! The lightning tribulation clouds covered the sky. The entire ancient immortal realm was plunged into darkness. Hum! Whoosh! Whoosh! Green Lotus Sword Immortal turned into his human form. He held a brand new Green Lotus Immortal Sword and soared into the sky. His green robe emitted Emperor aura. Hum! Mu Zhuang pulled out the wooden sword from the ground. His majestic body stood upright. He could move the sword Dao's origin with a wave of his hand. Looking at Mu Zhuang's sword aura, Gu Qingyu's Dao heart shook. Sword qi flashed in his eyes and his sword aura became stronger. Gu Qingyu was not envious or jealous. He only wanted to learn. Mu Zhuang's method was worth learning. If he could learn from Mu Zhuang's Mahayana realm, he might be able to break through to the half-ancestor realm. Just as everyone was shocked by Mu Zhuang's sword aura, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. His aura surged in all directions. He slowly stood up and all laws bowed before him. He and Yan Emperor were only one step apart. One had evolved Yan Emperor's great Tao to the Mahayana realm, while the other had not. However, Yi Qinghan was confident that without using his great Tao, his actual combat strength would surpass Yan Emperor's. In ancient times, there was the number one emperor. Today, there was the battle lord of Quang Mansion. Yi Qinghan looked disdainfully at the sky. So what if the sky was covered by dark clouds? All laws bowed before the great Tao. The other great Taos stood side by side. Only Yi Qinghan's heaven-defying Tao stood side by side with the immemorial yin-yang and heavenly Tao. No one was controlling Yan Emperor's Tao. It was very stable. When heaven-defying Tao appeared, Yan Emperor's Tao slowly disappeared from everyone's sight. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed. He stepped on heaven-defying Tao and looked down at heavenly Tao and immemorial yin-yang. Now, what are you going to use to redeem me? Yes, heaven-defying Tao stood side by side with heavenly Tao. After stepping into the Emperor realm, his combat strength was stronger than Yan Emperor's. It was just that heaven-defying Tao did not reach the Mahayana realm. Whoosh! Boom! Countless lightning tribulations rose from the ground and blasted towards Yi Qinghan. It was as if the galaxy was upside down and everything was turned upside down. Yi Qinghan was drowned in lightning. However, he did not move at all. Heaven-defying Tao blocked all laws. His body was not in the five elements. The laws and principles of the five elements could not threaten him at all. Yi Qinghan was only a hair's breadth away from completely breaking away from the five elements. He just needed to obtain that half of the alien planet's foundation. The 10 tribulations and 10 lifetimes were within his reach. Chapter 2888. The 10 tribulations and 10 lifetimes might not require anyone to die. All they needed was the other half of the alien star's origin. However, the immemorial yin-yang was in hot pursuit and the alien star could no longer resist. In the past few thousand years, in order to buy time for Yi Qinghan, it had used up almost all of its energy and was getting closer and closer. The entire crazy manor was in a state of tribulation. Lightning destroyed the galaxy and the Yunling Basin collapsed. It was almost pierced through and completely separated from the ancient immortal world. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom boom boom, the expedition to Heaven Camp kept changing positions until they reached the western Divine Mountain. After a few thousand years, they were all in the fourth state. Such an army could fight against the heavens. The chess saint's cultivation was not high, but he could control such an army. It was a pity that Yi Qinghan did not expect such a situation to occur. Otherwise, if the inner sect and the ancient massacre god had such an opportunity, their future achievements might not be lower than the expedition to Heaven Camp. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom. Lightning flashed across the galaxy and turned into dragons that swept across the sky. However, they could not hurt Yi Qinghan at all. Although Yi Qinghan had not completely transcended the five elements, only the immemorial yin-yang, the Yan Emperor's Tao, and himself could hurt his foundation. Chu Shiliang stood outside the elite hall with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the sky and his eyes were emotionless. It was as if he did not care about Yi Qinghan becoming the emperor. Chu Ju stood beside him and did not say much. Now that Yi Qinghan had reached the top, there was no other way but to wait. Chu Ju, do you still remember what I told you? Chu Shiliang asked calmly. Chu Ju bowed and replied, Master, Chu Ju remembers. Whoosh! Chu Shiliang slowly stepped forward and said softly, in the future, there will be 3 sides to the world. There will be life and danger everywhere. Yi Qinghan's end is still death. At least there is no light at the end of the tunnel. You can return to your original appearance and leave this place. Brother Yin Yang will return to the ancient immortal world in 300 years at the latest and 100 years at the latest. There is another person who should be back as well. If you stay, you will die. Go to the edge of the universe. The real experts will not chase after you. Chu Ju sighed, bowed and asked, Master, what about you? Chu Shiliang slowly took off his mask and said with a smile, my ending was decided in the primordial age. From the moment I set up the first trap, I saw my own ending. There's no need to worry about me. Whoosh! Chu Shiliang waved his hand and carved out 2 words. Each word was soul-stealing, and even the void was cut down. A dead end. These 2 simple words were filled with helplessness. Send these 2 words to Yi Qinghan. Also, tell him again that the path to survival might be at the next intersection. Ask him to retreat from Crazed Mansion and hide your weapons. Otherwise, we will all die in vain. Chu Shiliang waved his hand and retrieved the Liang Emperor sword. Then, he turned around and entered Class 1 Hall's main hall. Chu Ju was dejected. He had set up a shocking trap, but in the end, he couldn't control his own fate. Whoosh! Chu Ju took off his mask. His weathered face was filled with righteousness. His eyes, in particular, were no longer as vicious and ruthless as before. Zhang Fan. Chu Ju was actually Zhang Fan. However, his gaze changed Yi Qinghan's perception. He never thought that Zhang Fan's gaze would become so vicious. Whoosh! Whoosh! Zhang Fan left Class 1 Hall and headed straight for Yunling Basin. At this moment, Emperor Yi forcefully opened Zhang Fan's seclusion room and found that it was empty. He didn't know how long he had been away from Crazed Mansion. Emperor Yi was shocked. He didn't expect that apart from Chu Shiliang leaving, even Yi Qinghan's most trusted senior Zhang Fan was not in Crazed Mansion. But soon, Zhang Fan appeared when Yi Qinghan successfully passed his tribulation. Zhang Fan's emperor's aura was dense. It was obvious that he was the Taigu Emperor. Moreover, he was stronger than the Taigu Emperor and even stronger than Chu Jun. Yi Qinghan looked at Zhang Fan and asked calmly, Senior Zhang Fan, can you tell me the reason? Yi Qinghan guessed Chu Ju's identity, but he couldn't be sure. He couldn't imagine how Zhang Fan could change his gaze. It was 2 extremes. Ordinary people couldn't do it. Zhang Fan sighed and waved his hand to take out the 2 words Chu Shiliang gave him. Death. Whoosh! These 2 words only appeared for a moment before disappearing without a trace. Zhang Fan didn't answer Yi Qinghan's question. He only passed on a message for Chu Shiliang. Someone asked me to send you a message. The path to survival might be at the next intersection. He wants you to disperse all the experts in Crazed Mansion and hide your troops. Otherwise, they will all die in vain. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. These words should be from Chu Shiliang. If Chu Shiliang didn't die, then Yan Zu's death was worth considering. Chu Shiliang is indeed still alive. Yi Qinghan stared at Zhang Fan. He really wanted to know how this situation was set up. Believe me or not, it's up to you. Trust me one more time. Zhang Fan reminded. Yi Qinghan looked in the direction of the western Divine Mountain. Crazed Mansion had already moved there. He had just become emperor, but he wanted to disperse Crazed Mansion without even putting up a fight. This didn't suit his temperament. I won't disperse Crazed Mansion. He ruled the immemorial Yin Yang, but it's not to the point where I can't resist. He doesn't even dare to tolerate Yan Emperor. How strong can he be? Ancestor realm? Or half-ancestor? I'm no longer outside the 5 elements. The immemorial Yin Yang Dao and the heavenly Dao are on par. If he can hurt me, I can hurt him too. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Sigh, Zhang Fan was helpless. He didn't try to persuade him anymore. He turned and left silently. Yi Qinghan looked at Zhang Fan's back and didn't stop him. Zhang Fan was Chu Ju, but he had no choice. I don't like being manipulated. I'm going to break this trap. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He waved his hand and reformed Crazed Mansion. Everything went against the laws of order. His body shone brightly as he stepped on the heavenly Tao, looking down on all the Taos in the world. The Yen Emperor Tao disappeared, and so did the Heartless Tao. There was only one person in the world who cultivated the Heartless Tao, and the Yen Emperor Tao was only the ancient Celestial Emperor. If they didn't activate it, the two Taos would automatically disappear. Roar! Whoosh! Half a day later, the saber light shook the heavens. Yi Qinghan raised his saber and looked at the sky. The alien star suddenly shone. Ah, Yi Qinghan's heart suddenly hurt. The alien star was captured, and the origin source was being refined. The immemorial Yin-Yang Tao didn't give Yi Qinghan a chance. It was too far. Yi Qinghan didn't even have the chance to save it now. It was a dead end. Chu Shiryang's prediction was right. Yi Qinghan clenched Crazed Mansion tightly. His eyes shone with a cold light as he growled, so what if you refined half of the origin source? At most, half of your body will be outside the 5 elements. What can you do to me? Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan stepped on order and appeared in Elite Hall. However, Elite Hall was empty. There was no sign of Chu Shiryang. Chu Shiryang, get out here. Yi Qinghan's eyes could see through everything, but he couldn't see Chu Shiryang's location. Chu Shiryang left, not giving Yi Qinghan any hope. Chapter 2889. Boom! Yi Qinghan destroyed Elite Hall's headquarters with a single saber strike. The headquarters that stood proudly at the peak of the stars crumbled. I will not fall into your trap. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at the ruins of Elite Hall and left with his saber. Apart from the 1,000 members of the Thorn Dao Legion, the 5 million ancient massacre gods, and the first, second, and third generations of the Crazed Manor's army, everyone else retreated and hid. Yi Qinghan appeared outside the army. At this moment, Lu Feng had successfully passed his tribulation and was waiting outside the army. However, his aura was restrained, making him look like an ordinary youth. No one knew that he was the Hall Master of Heaven. Yi Qinghan glanced at Lu Feng and asked coldly, "Why are you looking for me?" I discovered a new domain, the Seeking Heaven domain. Back then, the War of Emperors took place in the Seeking Heaven domain. However, I do not know where it is, Lu Feng said softly. Yi Qinghan muttered with a cold glint in his eyes. Seeking Heaven domain. Primal Chaos Heavenly domain. Crack. Crack. These two domains should be transcendental. Whether or not he could find the origin and operation of these two domains would depend on whether he could fight to a draw with the immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor. If he fought to a draw, the world would be divided. If he lost, he would have no more chances. Yi Qinghan tightened his grip on his saber and said coldly, I understand. Go back and pretend that you know nothing. Lu Feng fled. He did not dare to go against Elite Hall. Even if Elite Hall was destroyed, as long as the immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor did not die, Elite Hall would not be destroyed. A few months later, Elite Hall went into hiding and disappeared. They hid their weapons and waited for the immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor to summon them. Crazed Manor was not nervous at this moment. Since Yi Qinghan decided to fight to the death, they would fight once. The worst outcome would be a complete wipeout. The army laid down a shocking formation. Their opponent was not the immemorial Yin-Yang Immortal Emperor or Elite Hall, but the Yen clan's backup. It might also be Chu Shiryang. Tap tap tap, Yi Qinghan tapped the table with his fingertips. Mu Zhuang, Brother Gu, the two of you will be in charge of protecting the sage. Brother Yan, you will guard the sage from the shadows. No one else is allowed to approach the sage. Yi Qinghan held a private meeting with the elders of Insane Manor, the second and third generations, as well as Xing Yan, Zhu Hai, and Lai Ying. Other than the three people that Yi Qinghan instructed, no one else was allowed to get close to the chess saint, including Yan Ao and Emperor Yi. It was better to be safe than sorry. Yi Qinghan knew that the chess saint was too important. Once he died, the 5 million strong army would be leaderless and fall into chaos. No one objected. Everyone knew the importance of the chess saint. Everyone else, get ready to deal with Chu Shiliang, Immemorial Yin Yang's backup plan, or any unexpected situations. Leave Immemorial Yin Yang to me. Yi Qinghan gripped his saber, ready for battle. Half of Yi Qinghan's body stood outside of the 5 elements. Even so, he dared not say that he could win for sure. After all, Immemorial Yin Yang had already refined half of the alien star root's basic source. Hua. After Yi Qinghan arranged everything, a message came from the immortal world. Report. Matriarch suppressed the immemorial Yin Yang celestial sword. Snow covered the entire heaven-suppressing prefecture, freezing everything within 1,000,000 miles. She has also turned into an ice sculpture and her fate is unknown. The immortal world no longer had a person in charge. Other than the basic army that maintained the order, the others were all dismissed. Hence, the news came very slowly. Hua. Yi Qinghan's eyes shone brightly and his killing intent soared to the sky. Immemorial Yin Yang. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse and filled with killing intent. He couldn't hold it in any longer. Hua. Yi Qinghan looked at the edge of the sky. The alien star had already dimmed. Immemorial Yin Yang celestial monarch should be back soon. Xiao, Yi Qinghan left the place and returned to the immortal world in just half a day. He stepped through the order and returned to the heaven-suppressing prefecture. The snow covered even the palaces. The immemorial Yin Yang celestial sword was frozen in mid-air, and was always under Jian Qinshue's feet. An icicle was drawn down from the immemorial Yin Yang celestial sword, forming a snowy country. It was beautiful, but this perfect snowy world contained a lot of love and hatred. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and looked at the frozen heaven-suppressing prefecture. His heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. Immemorial Yin Yang, you deserve to die. You set up such a huge trap just to refine the alien star and surpass the 5 elements. Yi Qinghan kept his saber and melted the ice on Jian Qinshue's body. Her body was cold and there was no warmth left, but her pulse was still beating. All the heavenly medicines and healing medicines were used up. Yin Wang. The immemorial Yin Yang celestial sword vibrated and Duo Tian left. However, Yi Qinghan no longer had the mind to catch it. Saving Jian Qinshu was the most important thing now. Hua. Xiu. Yi Qinghan carried Duo Kong and rushed towards the ancient immortal world. He wanted to find the mother vine of the 9-chain ring gourd. Hua. The void twisted and he traveled 1,000 miles in an instant. Mother vine. Come out. Help me one more time. Yi Qinghan looked down at the ancient immortal world and roared. His voice was like thunder as he blasted towards the border of the ancient immortal world. Yi Qinghan kept changing his location. He appeared at the eastern divine mountain and spread his divine sense. However, he knew that the mother vine must have left. After all, this place was too dangerous. But just when he was in despair, the mother vine really appeared. Hua. The mother vine turned into a human and her motherly aura filled the air. She was extremely holy. So it's my benefactor. The mother vine stuck out her big belly. Her 9 children were about to be born and she was extremely weak at the moment. Help me save her. I owe you a big favor. As long as I don't die, I will repay this favor 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Yi Qinghan hugged Jian Qinshui and said in a deep voice. The mother vine looked at Jian Qinshui's pale face and said in a low voice, her life source is almost exhausted. I'm afraid it will take a long time for her to recover. No matter how long it takes, as long as you can save her. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. The mother vine took a deep breath and reached out to take Jian Qinshui. She bowed slightly and said, this place is no longer safe. I will take her away and let her come back to you after she recovers. No need. If I don't die, I will go find her. You guys should run for your lives. The ancient immortal world is no longer safe. Go to the voracious wolf constellation from here. There is a teleportation stele there that leads to the dark moon star at the edge of the universe. If anyone stops you, just show them the token. If no one stops you, continue to travel to the depths of the universe from the dark moon star and find a small planet to live in seclusion. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and condensed a mountain. He set up a heaven-defying Tao technique on it and carved the words, Crazy Manner Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan sent the route to the boundary stele to the mother vine again. He cupped his fists and said in a deep voice, please. The mother vine did not hesitate. She took the token and left with Jian Qinshui on her back. As Yi Qinghan watched Jian Qinshui leave, he felt as if a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. He could fight with peace of mind. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and looked at the chaotic heavenly domain and then at the depths of the universe. The light of the alien star had completely dissipated. The alien star had been destroyed. Half of the origin source had been taken away by the immemorial yin-yang and successfully refined. The alien star had exhausted its last bit of strength and bought some time for Yi Qinghan. Chapter 2890. On the western Divine Mountain, Yi Qinghan had returned. He sat on a lightning bolt, and Zhong Kuang was stabbed into the mountain peak. He sat with his blade in his hand, staring coldly at the sky as he waited for the return of the person who ruled the ancient times. The sun was setting, and his shadow was elongated. Everyone looked at his back and saw the vicissitudes of life and determination. In this battle, either you die or I die. The person who ruled the ancient times against the newly ascended person who transcended the 5 elements. If the Yen Emperor was revived, this battle would be even more exciting. Unfortunately, the Yen Emperor did not return. Whoosh! The image of dragon and tiger roared, and its aura soared to the sky, as if it wanted to compete with the heavens. This mask seemed to suit Yi Qinghan better. It was hard to imagine how domineering the Yen ancestor would be when he wore it. The immemorial yin-yang emperor sword flew out of its sheath, and a cold light pierced through the ancient times. It took the initiative to meet the immemorial yin-yang emperor. The immemorial yin-yang emperor had returned, but it would take him a lot of time to return from the border. Time flew by, and Yi Qinghan was focused on preparing for battle. He did not leave this place, and instead, he comprehended the heaven-defying Tao. However, it was difficult to improve at this time. A few years later, the immemorial yin-yang emperor sword appeared in the center of the universe. His aura soared to the sky, and it shook the heavens. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and said in a deep voice, remember the last path. Go to the border and don't gather together. Run as far as you can. Once I'm defeated, don't continue fighting. Otherwise, you'll only end up cutting off my escape route. Yes. Whoosh! Boom! The army moved in unison, and the experts of the insane mansion did not object. The first, second, and third generations were filled with sorrow. They wanted to fight to the death, but they did not dare to. If Yi Qinghan had an escape route and they died, Yi Qinghan's escape route would be cut off. Has the ancient heavenly emperor awakened? Yi Qinghan asked in a low voice. Gu Jiutian stood out and replied, Father has awakened and is recovering. Phew, Yi Qinghan let out a breath of turbid air. The ancient heavenly emperor was also a very important character. With his strength, if he used the Yen emperor's great way and joined forces with Yi Qinghan to deal with the immemorial Yin Yang, their chances of victory would be higher. Whoosh! Berserk was pulled out. The blade tore through the void and rose into the air. This battle is a decisive battle between me and the primordial Yin Yang immortal emperor. Before a victor is decided, no one is allowed to interfere. If not, all of you will die in vain. Don't disturb my Dao heart. Yi Qinghan drew in a deep breath and rushed into the depths of the cosmos. Yen Ao held the human Dao Emperor Pagoda in his hand. He wanted to make a move. This battle was not only about Yi Qinghan breaking through the primordial realm but also the beginning of his revenge. However, Yi Qinghan didn't say anything definite. He wanted to wait until the battle between him and the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor was over. At that time, both sides would be injured. The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor's power was limited. No matter how weak the Taigu emperor was, he wouldn't be able to kill him in one strike. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan once again entered the depths of the cosmos. He waited on the path where the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor came from. He wanted to have a decisive battle with the void so that he wouldn't destroy the ancient immortal world. The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor's beautiful face was neither yin nor yang. Indeed, he had the feeling of the sun rising from the east. Whoosh! The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor retrieved his emperor sword and pierced through the void. He looked at Yi Qinghan from 1,000,000 miles away. Savior, this is the first time we meet. It's an honor to meet you. A majestic voice pierced through the galaxy and directly entered Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor who ruled over the ancient times. Your reputation is not as good as meeting you in person. It seems like you are just a beast with a human face. Yi Qinghan stepped on the void and slowly walked into the depths. Ha 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 ha, the crisp and charming smile made people shudder. The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor twirled his fingers. However, his masculine aura erupted as he replied coldly, a beast with a human face. I wholeheartedly fought for the inheritance of the ancient gods and ancient immortals. I have never been selfish. Yet you, a tribulation taker, and the Flame Emperor are constantly trying to destroy the dignity of the ancient gods and ancient immortals. You want to trample them under your feet? Yi Qinghan raised his blade and walked forward. He looked at the strange Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor. He didn't expect that a person who ruled over the ancient times would be a Yin Yang person. However, this didn't affect his killing intent. Even if the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor was a woman, he would still fight to the death today. Whoosh! The void collapsed. The two of them controlled the situation of the world. Boom! All the laws of the world followed, and order coexisted. The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor entered the ancestor realm. Up until now, the first ancestor realm expert was born. He wasn't a half-ancestor like the Yen ancestor, but a true ancestor realm expert. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. As time passed, the more the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor was exposed, the slimmer his chances of winning became. The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor entered the ancestor realm after refining the alien star. Back then, he was stronger than the Yen ancestor and could obtain the ancestor realm with a wave of his hand. Now, he had successfully entered the ancestor realm. Phew! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Against the heavenly Tao, he stood side by side with the heavenly Tao. He stepped on the 6 laws and looked down at the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor. However, at this moment, the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor controlled the Yin Yang Tao to suppress the heavenly Tao. Ant. The alien star has been refined by me. What do you have to fight me? The Taigu Yin Yang Immortal Emperor's killing intent sword. He waved his hand and the Emperor's sword was unsheathed. Sword chi pierced through the dome. Buzz. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan raised his sword and shouted, against the heavenly Tao. Roar. Whoosh. The two of them swooped down with their blades. One of them was an emperor comparable to the Yen Emperor, while the other was a Taigu immortal emperor who ruled over the ancient times. Boom! The two of them clashed. The collapse of the galaxy was even more serious than when the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor attacked the alien star. However, there was a balance between the two. What was destroyed in the front was restored when the anti-order was activated. Whoosh! The aftershock traveled countless miles and appeared in the ancient immortal world. The chi rushed to the ground and the ancient immortal world trembled. The Cloud Ridge Basin, which was already in ruins, shattered and completely broke away from the ancient immortal world. It turned into a meteor that smashed through the node and into the immortal world. Roar! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor controlled the Yin Yang Dao and the speed of his sword was extremely fast. However, every strike had the power to kill the Taigu emperor. The emperor's sword tore through the laws and the Yin Yang 8 trigrams light stole the light of the sun, moon, and stars. Bang bang bang! Yi Qinghan seemed to only be able to passively resist. The Yin Yang Dao suppressed the against the heavenly Dao. The against the heavenly Dao was not complete. This was the fatal flaw. Boom! In an instant, there were at least thousands of collisions. The laws were useless against Yi Qinghan, but the sharp sword chi could penetrate the 5 elements and hit his foundation. The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor was too strong. The Yin Yang Dao was perfect and flawless. With the Yin Yang Dao, he could completely suppress the against the heavenly Dao. Boom! The against the heavenly Dao was hit. If he resisted for a long time, the against the heavenly Dao would collapse sooner or later. Whoosh! A sword chi swept across the universe. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The stars were cut in half and countless stars were destroyed. However, the Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor did not care. He was now truly a dictator and controlled everything. As long as he wanted, the entire universe could be restored to its original state or even better than before. Submit to me and I will spare your life. Roar! Boom! The Taigu Yin Yang immortal emperor's sword pierced through the back of Zhong Kuang's saber and pressed against Yi Qinghan's throat. His strength could no longer be described by humans or ancient gods and ancient immortals. He had transcended. Boom! Yi Qinghan stomped on a dead star and directly shattered it. The void was crushed and shattered, and bright light flickered. Heaven burning defying technique. Boom! Whoosh! Zhong Kuang flipped and twisted the Taigu Yin Yang Emperor sword, almost breaking it. The terrifying defying technique drowned the Taigu Yin Yang Immortal Emperor. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.